Oh wait, okay. I had this really long speech ready, and then this PowerPoint didn't want to play, and I lost the speech. So that's okay. Like my daughter said, just talk to you all like I talk to my class. So intergenerational learning through my eyes, I believe it started as a child, and I come from a very large family. My grandparents, my grandmother, she was an orphan at 6, and that always bothered her growing up. She always wanted a large family, and she wanted to make sure that her children had somebody. So she was raised by her aunt, and but she knew she was called a daughter. Her aunt only had sons. She was called a daughter, but she still felt like something was missing. And that's something she always expressed to us. So when I think about how far she's came, my grandma and my grandpa, they had 7 kids. Their 7 kids have had 50 grandkids. Those 50 were on 20. My mom had 18, but we had like 7 to 26 to 50, and now we're up to 18 grades. So got a pretty large family, and so I think my grandparents would be very proud of that. But through that is our intergenerational learning. Everything that they learned and they knew, they passed down to us. And so when I think about that, I have to make sure that I'm carrying on what my mom said, what my grandma said, what my grandpa shared with us. And I tried to do that. I tried to teach within my family, but also outside of my family. I also did not want to stand up here and say a whole lot of I, but I've already done that. So continue on. Growing up, I would see my grandpa, he had it was called Biker Trading Post. And so his store, he went around and he was a vendor at many towns and all over the many states. And he would, he worked with many weeders and weavers and people that could do all kinds of talent, natural talent. So when we think of that intergenerational learning, they passed it down. Everything's passed down and taught and carried on. And I see that throughout the dances and such. But what was really cool was that I was able to, I remembered how my grandpa he would cut out those otter hides. And he was very meticulous in how he did that. But that was something we did in the shop. And I would watch him, and he would talk about that and why you do this and why you need to talk to it, because he gave to us. And he's going to carry on. He's going to live through us by our use. And so through the generations of our family, some of them forgot how he did that. But I remembered, so I got to share that and carry that on. And so I think about those different things with our clothing, my grandma, and what she shared with us growing up. She had she has her story, and it's tied in with this. Before it was a movie, before it was a book, and all of that, it was Space Reign of Terror. Before all of those came out, that's something we just learned at home. And she made sure that we knew about it. We knew where we come from. We learned how to be aware and to always be cautious of your surroundings. But not cautious in fear, but cautious because there's those out there. But I think some families, they do take that cautiousness and they use it to the extent where it kind of hinders them. Because, there was that point in time where it wasn't cool to be Indian, it wasn't cool to be Native. And so that's how those generations lost their culture and traditions. It wasn't passed down. And so it was left to others to do that. And so we have many people that come to us through the nation, through our cultural department. We have lots of calls and people that drop by and they want to learn, they want to know. And sometimes it can be easy because you find out what their plans are and everything and how you can proceed with them, how to navigate them through and who would be there. But then we have some people that they might be their grandparent was a member of those plans that we don't have anymore. There's no one there to carry that on. And so that makes it difficult. And so we have a lot of tribes people that they come to us and they have those problems. So seeing that through the years, I've grown up in the language. My dad, Ben Bigforce, he got with my mom when I was 8, so he's been my dad since I was 8 years old. And he raised us in this language with my mom. My mom was very, she was lucky enough to have our great grandma who raised my grandma. She was a fluent speaker. And so we got to have some of those teachings of her and hear that language spoken. And when I was little, I didn't realize my great grandma was talking Osage to me. I didn't know that. I didn't hear the difference. I didn't, it wasn't like an obvious difference. She spoke, I reacted. She directed in Osage, and I reacted. But I didn't realize at the time that it was different. It wasn't pointed out. And so I can remember some of those words she said. And it wasn't until we started coming together and taking language when the department was created that we were able to go back and reflect on that time, reflect on those words that she said. I was like, hey, she said this, or I think she said that. But those things, it's kind of sad when you think about it, because why didn't we record it? Why didn't we have the audio of that? Some of these families are very fortunate to have had that. And so it makes me feel like I wish that's something that we had. So in our family, we tried very hard. My mom, she was very adamant with teaching not just her kids, but the grandkids, the purpose of everything. She shared the language with them, and we were very heavily involved. My mom and dad, together, they have 6 kids. And so when my parents were with the language, well, we were all with the language. And so we were going for 6 years straight. We were there 3 days a week. And it was going really great. So I realized I have to go to school and get my education. And while I like my kids being in here, it's taking away from what I have to do. And so I took a break, not a break from language, but it was just a break from class to go and further my education. And my kids stayed in it, and they would talk and come home, and I was like, not remembering what that is. And so I realized I've got to keep learning. So then we would go back to class. Well, my kids have always been, I was a single mom, raising my 3 kids, as well as nieces. And boy, they would argue. And I get so angry because we'd be in public and trying to argue. I'm like, you should just be quiet. And they're like, but then we're in language. I want them to use their language. So I said, you know what? You want to argue? I'll let you argue as long as it's in your language. As long as it's in Osage, you can argue all you want. But if you argue in English, then you're in trouble. And they're like, well, poor Uncle Mo, they were flooding him every time they saw him. How do you say this? How do you say that? And he was like, oh, I don't know if I want to tell you that. And I'm going to have to tell your mom. And he would tell me that they want to know this. I said, yeah. Why do they want to talk like that? Well, they're arguing. They got to talk to each other, and they don't want to go get in trouble if they do it in English. But how, I've heard other speakers say, meet them where they are. That's a good point, and that's what I've learned to try to do. I try to meet them where they are. What is their interests? What do they like? And then the way I talk with my kids and my nieces and my nephews and all, I try to think about what are your interests, what do you want to discuss, and how are we going to put that into language? And so we're trying to do this throughout the years and everything. And then it's like, okay, we're doing this at home, we're cooking with it, we're doing our clothes with it. My mom would make everyone had to come over and help put your clothes together during our dances, open up the trunks and start doing all that. But she would name everything, she'd say everything in Osage to them, and so they had to do the same thing. And so it was just a constant language and culture. And that it was great, but we didn't record it. And that was, I hate that because I don't have my mom sharing those stories and telling them. But it's good, my kids, they remember. And so they're able to share that with the ones that were too young, or we've only had one more grandchild born since my mom passed. And so they know they have to share that with her. And I think it's her voice, and it's the way she shared the language and the culture. And she always had such a kindness to it. And then, so I try to remember that when I talk with my kids or when I talk with my students. You have to have kindness. You have to have this sharing voice. And, it's difficult when you hear people over here talking and you're trying to teach or share or whatever, and they're still talking or you're giggling or whatever, and you want to say, hey, and tell them to knock it off or whatever, but then you got to remember, my mom didn't do that. My mom would just get quiet, and she'd just tell everyone to be quiet. For the ones that were still going, we're still making noise. Well, when my mom would do that to us, she's upset, she's mad. Well, she's not mad. She just wanted to draw your attention back to the point that you're the only one talking, and she's the one that's supposed to be saying. So, when I think about those things that my mom did, I do try to incorporate those into my classroom because I teach Osage language in our public schools. I teach Osage 1 and Osage 2. And I start my day off with Osage 2 students. And they set the stage for what's going to happen in the next hours. And I think about when we begin, I ask them to go around the room and tell about their story, their homes, their families. If you're Osage here, what district you're from? Are you Uga'xpa, Zaldoli, Basuli? Tell me who you are. And so they'll go through. We do have students that are non-native, or there are other tribes. And so I say, how do you say your tribe and your name? Well, if they don't know, then I make a note of that, then I've got to find out how would they say it in their language. Or our non-native students. I say, well, where do you live? And I just live in the Huskers. So how would you say that? And so our town, Aluska, how you would say it in Osage. And they're like, oh. I said, so when I ask where you're from, that's what you'll say. But it's giving them this connectedness, I guess, not just to the language, but to the classroom in our school. And that was something my mom always said. My mom always, when she would talk to people, when she talked to them about their people and their ways and stuff, she always made them use their language and tell her there's because she wanted to hear it. And it was she said it was a way of connecting. So I try to incorporate that into the classroom. But I know I love so much out of the beginning of this talk. So I didn't say, I have this whole Osage language. All right, so anyways, in our classrooms, we go around the room, we have that discussion of who we are, where we fit in. Do you dance? Do you participate? I had there were some other speakers that talked about how there's not, I think that's the first one, talked about how at that mission school, he taught them how to pray. And I do that as well. However, my first year, I had a student, and you never know when you're going to get these students, but I had a student that said, Miss Daylight, according to section such and such of the statutes, you're not allowed to teach religion in class in a public school. That's true. However, according to our world language standards for teaching Native American languages and culture, we have prayer. And we're prayerful people. We pray from the time we wake up at noon and when we go to sleep. And if we get woke up during that night, we're going to pray again. I said, so that's who we are. And I have proof right here that I can talk like this. I can share it. But if it makes you feel any better, these are just some Osage phrases that you can use sporadically throughout your day. And however you choose to use them, that's what you do. He just kind of looked at me, but he's such a smart kid. And after class, he came up to me, he goes, you know what, I told other teachers that they could never tell me why they never give me an argument as to prayer. And I said, well, I don't look at prayer as prayer. It's just what we do. Because we are prayerful people. And that's what we've been taught. We pray when we cook, we pray when we sew, we pray when we gather. Anything we do, that's what it's centered around. We start and end with prayer. And he was like, okay. So in our class, that's what we learn. You'll learn those talks of them. But if it does upset you, and if it does make you feel uncomfortable, I'll label it differently. I'll just put Osage phrases on it. I go, but you're going to learn this broke down into different sections. He's okay, I can handle that. It's after me. And pull the statutes out, and I've never faced that before. And so, I've taken lots of classes, and I never had classmates approach their teachers in that manner. But, kids today, they're different. They're bold. They, especially, it seems like, especially in public schools, they're very bold and fearless. They just say whatever, and they expect you to take it. And I don't take that. We learn respect in our classroom. What point? We go through that. It's a big word. Covers a lot. We teach it to get these students to address their parents and family members in the manner in which they should be speaking to them. Not just Bob and Mary over here. That's my parents, Bob and Mary. So that's your mom and dad. And I'm just like, it's just crazy how students talk. So I know my kids, if they thought about talking like that, well, they wouldn't. But, if they did, it's, I'd be startled, but then I have to say, you need to go tell your grandparents what you said. And growing up with that sense of well-going in a family, you never entered a room where you didn't shake hands. And my parents, somebody would come over and they'd say, so-and-so's here. Come in the room and tell you, so-and-so's here. And I'd go, okay. They weren't just telling you so that you were loud or active. It was for you to come in there, shake hands with who came to the house to visit. But a lot of families, they don't teach that. And we do that in our classroom. We have, there's usually the person that's closest to the door. If somebody comes to our classroom, they're the ones that have to greet. And while the rest of us say hello from our chairs, because once you let them up, then it's chaos. But if they come during when we are in a standing position, if they're in our class, the person that has interrupted our classroom to speak, they have to shake everybody's hand. So it's a cultural awareness that we give to everybody. They kind of like it when they get interrupted and someone comes in because they know they got to do it. I kind of like that. At the same time, it kind of gets chaotic, especially when I'm trying to do something. But it's teaching, and they didn't have that teaching at home because of that intergenerational loss. There was a disconnect somewhere within their families that those teachers were lost. And so now I'm having to bring it into the classroom. Not as you do this, you do that, kind of how I was raised, but more of a culturally, this is what we do. The other thing I teach in my classroom is, you all have heard the saying, I am my brother's keeper. And they're like, oh, no. Well, in here, we are. I said, in here, you came to this class, you're in this class. So now this is your family. So this is your family. We take language together. We're family. So when you're in other classrooms, you see someone struggling or they need help, you better reach out and help that family because that's what we do. We take care of each other. We provide for each other. Someone don't have something, you help them out. And so we do that in our classroom as well. And I got to see how I actually got to see that action happen because we had a student that I didn't know he was going through something, but he shared that with a couple of our students. Well, those students shared it with the rest of the class. Next thing I know, then they've come together and they're doing something for them. I thought, well, this is wonderful. This is what you're supposed to do. And they're like, Miss Daylight, don't make it a big deal. Okay, but you're doing great. And I think about those things. The first year of teaching was very hard because I used to telling kids what to do. I tell my kids what to do. I tell my nieces and nephews what to do. So it was very difficult that first year. And they were very aggressively saying that they weren't going to listen. I was like, oh, I raised my voice and it's not working. Usually that's all I have to do is just raise my voice. So then I had to do the opposite of that. Then I had to lower it and whisper. And we can't hear you because you're whispering. That's the clue. So I'd rather scream at you, but it's not working. I've already done that. You didn't hear it. So you must get screamed at a lot at home. And they're like, what? I go, because my kids, they can go, keep on going. All the screaming there is going on, they keep on going because I scream so much that it doesn't work. So then I have to get quiet, and then they listen. And so those kids, those students were just kind of like, I had a couple of them say, that's what my grandma does. I'm not a grandma, but I'm going to use that one day. That'll be good. I am a grandma now, and so that's wonderful. It gives a whole. My mom always said, "Your kids are wonderful and you love them, but your grandchildren are completely different. There's a whole other love." And I would listen to my mom say that. My grandma said it. She goes, "We'll wait till you have great grandchildren." Okay, hopefully one day. I really want to live to be 100, so we'll see. They said, "Why do you want to live that long?" I said, "Well, I want to see what happens with my great grandkids." And they were like, "Oh, well, what if your great grandkids have great grandkids for you?" I was like, "That'd be really old. I don't think they could become that, but I know they're going to want to jump on me. That's my grandmother does she counts." But I think about those things that we do in the classroom, and I try to incorporate the teachings that I had growing up with my great grandma, my grandma, my mom, my aunts and uncles, and I think about the way they raised us and taught us, and then how I've taken that and I raised my children and helped with my sisters and brothers' children. In our family, my sisters and brothers, all their kids, those are all my kids. I just let you take them home, but they're mine. And my first niece, she's the fourth grandchild because I had the first three. And so my first niece, I was so excited. I was finally a niece, and nobody could understand why I was so excited. We were all these gifts, and then the day that she was born, I come back to the hospital and I had armloads more of gifts. And I'm like, Dingo, why are be so overwhelmed. I was like, I'm an aunt. And they were like, this is my first time. And they're like, but my niece, she was always with me. And I felt like she lived with me. And she felt like she lived with me. It wasn't until her mom moved. She moved, to the southern part, and that's when she found out, oh, you're my mom. That's what she said. Oh, you're my mom. I thought she was my aunt. I thought my mom would just let me go stay with me. And so that was really hard, and I hated that for her, but that just showed how much I had included her. She was included. She knew she was part of it. She was part of a group. She wasn't an only child. She was part of it. And so I felt bad for her mom, but at the same time, I felt good because I felt like I did my job. She was included. She knew when I hollered 1, 2, 3 for my kids to line up, she always come around and get on the end and say 4. And so it was so cute. I was like, okay. And we went with that. So, but now there's not 4. There's like 18 kids, and they all run and do their little thing. They all sound off their numbers. And if somebody's missing, they think they get to jump the line and take over that number. And I have to tell them, no, your number, get on back down there. And but everybody has a place in the family, and they're all. That's the other thing we cover in our classroom. We talk about where you're from, what district you're from, and everything else. But I also ask my students, what number order are you in your family? And I said, are you first son, first daughter, second son? What order are you? I need to know that. And I said, because those numbers, they hold a place. They put your place in your family and what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to act, and how you're supposed to help everybody. Because everybody helps the family. It's not just mom and dad takes care of everything, or just mom does it, or just dad does it. It's everybody. And so I try to teach them that in there. And my son has come into my classroom on different occasions, and he's had to explain his role. I said, so he'll come on in there, and my son is so vibrant. He's very vibrant and energetic, and he makes the room look at him. His name's Ponca, and his name, he's the one that hears and signifies to the others that there's someone present or someone coming. He's the one that does that. However, he does that for us, but at the same time, he's the one that's present. And so it's, you can't help but notice him when he enters that room. And so I do love how he comes in. He talks about what his position is within the family, how, he's the first son, he's got to do this, he's got to do that, he's got to be helpful, but he's a role model. And that's what I've told them all, my students. I said, you're role models within your families. You're not just role models to your younger siblings, to your cousins, but you're role models in your school. So how you conduct yourself, that's what others are looking at. And you've taken my class now, and so you should know how to lead. And I said, we're not just in here just taking Osage language, learning about our language and culture, but we're learning how to be leaders, because that's what you all are. You're leaders. You're leaders because you stepped in here. Not everybody came in here. If we had all the Osages in the school in here, we wouldn't have room, because there's that many. And they didn't choose to come in. So you're in here, so now you got to lead, and you got to go share that language. And so when I think about how they do that, I think, how can I get them to share their culture, share their language, and by doing that, I have to do it, or I have to have somebody come in to do that. And so we've been very fortunate to not only have a language department in the nation, but we also have a cultural department. And so our cultural department, they're very giving towards our classroom, because they provide us with different supplies and instructors to come and teach. We've had a choker making class for the boys and a long necklace class for the girls. It was simultaneous, so that was hard, but it was good. So they all had to pay attention. they all had to learn. So we had to learn how to say bone and bead and string and our scissors, and we learned how to say all those different things, all the elements of it. So then whenever they had the class, when Herman would come in and teach for us, we had Herman and we had another teacher, but John, he was the other one that came and helped us with those classes. That was the first year that we had Cultural Center come and help with classes. I thought that was really good. We watched the videos, we played videos, and they all participated with that. And both my Osage class, both of the Osage classes got to do that activity, that project. But then the next year, we did moccasin making. I only did that with one class because it was, that's more work. It's tedious, and anything that I have my students do, it's a grade. I make it a grade because if you don't make it a grade, then they don't do it. They don't see it's really important, and they don't finish. And so they got graded on, one moccasin, 2 moccasins. So completed it. Let's take a picture. That's your final project, points. But it took a long time to get there, and we started the project in the fall, and we ended it in the spring, just because we had other things to do. And those kids, they have so many activities at our school. There's like all the sports, and then there's ag. Ag takes kids out for a long time. They're out of class, I think, for like 2 weeks in the spring. And I'm like, what do you do that? So I'm going to ask the kid. Oh, I don't know. But you're in there. You take all these trips with you. I'm just there. Okay, well then you need something to do in Osage there so that you can come back and bring it to me. He goes, I said, you all have assignments when you're gone. And everybody's doing these assignments in class, and we've just been doing a lot of talking, and so I grade in class on the fly like that. So I need you to write about what you did, but I want you to put Osage in it. And he was like, well, that's hard. I said, it's not hard. You think of everything that you know on Osage. Get your book out, you have all those papers, you have all that language. I want you to take what you did and put it into a project. I want to, well, how long it be? I said, well, I went 2 pages, and I went 5 to 7 paragraphs. And he's just like, I said, you can do it. But in my mind, I'm thinking, if he does 5 paragraphs, he can put 1 word per paragraph in Osage, and it's gonna fix it. It's easy. It's not difficult. But those kids, they make the language so big. And I was thinking, you're stressing. Why are you stressing? Well, it's just big. I said, yeah, it is, but you're already doing it. And so you're constantly giving them those positive feedback of, look what great things you do. Look at these words you say. Say this, say that. And they'll say these things. And I said, look, wasn't that great? You said it real easy. Look how easy it was. It's there, but we just have to think it. I said, think about when you first walked into that classroom. Could I have got you to say that? Oh, no. Exactly. But look where you are now. You have grown so much in the language, and you're able to share that. In the springtime, a lot of them, we've been having virtual days since COVID. And so on those virtual days, the assignment that I usually give, they have to go into the Google Classroom and do whatever I post there, which usually I say, I want you to type here on this line, but I want you to do a video of yourself in the beginning. It's a video of yourself, and I want you to either say a prayer for me, or, because we've learned that throughout the year, I want you to recite a prayer and record yourself doing it. Do I have to show my face, Ms. Taylor? Well, that would be nice, but I guess you don't in this first one. No, you don't have to show your face. I don't want anybody showing their face in this first video. Well, I had one person not show their face, and there was like 20 of them that had a face. I was like, it's the reverse. The reverse, it always works. Okay. So then I would have them do, they had to do conversations, but I didn't realize I was going to have to teach them how to have a conversation. Kids don't, kids nowadays, they don't have conversations. I said, well, when you got home from school or your parents get home from work, what do you all say to each other? I don't know. Do you say, hello, how was your day? Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. No, you don't? Well, where are you? I'm usually in my room or I'm out with friends or they're home. You all talk about what you're going to have for dinner? Yeah. I just tell my mom what McDonald's or my dad will want something else. So I go, see, you all got your mom running around all over the place for different meals. It's that don't work at my house. We all eat one thing. And it's whatever I want. And they all start laughing. I go, but so what I want you to do is have this conversation. So that was a big thing we had to do this year. And so it's I put these gave everybody the sheet of paper that has like 6 different panels on it. And I said, I want this person to say something to this person. This person, I want this back and forth. But I want these conversations, these 6 different panels. And it could be a one-word question, like, Mafia, say she. I said, how would you respond? And I have one. Yes, put a tie on the end. It's cloudy right now. Okay, that's what I want. I want that type of conversation. Ask a question. Hello, how are you? Oh, hey, okay. I said, keep going. I want these things on here. You don't have to be elaborate in your pictures. A stick figure is fine, or just the bubbles. I just want to see that conversation. And it's what we do. And so they're like, of course, I have these phenomenal artists in my classes. And so they go through great detail of creating these people and how, and then, they have the language, and I'm like, oh, she all write books, she all can write books, she all can do so many things. And so, but it always takes me to get them prepared for the language fair, entering that. Last year we had a speaker here, Emma McKibben, and she gave a talk over orthography use with them, Osage and Quapaw language. And she was my star student, of course, but she's a phenomenal artist. She did the artwork for our teachers and everything, for our t-shirts and our books this year. But the picture that she did for that year was language equals strong hearts and minds. And that was a hard concept to get across to the students. Like, what does that mean? When I say that to you, what does that mean? Language equals strong hearts and minds. And so, they'll go around the room asking, I don't know, you got a strong heart, strong minds. But how would you talk about it? If you couldn't draw it or show a picture of it, how would you talk about it? They go, Osage? I said, well, first let's do English. Let's get our thought there, and then we'll take it to Osage. Okay. So it was a struggle. So then I thought, okay, this could be a science. So it was a paper. So they had to turn in a paper, 3 paragraphs. You don't have to use Osage. But when I say you don't have to, they do. If I say I need you to use as much Osage as possible, then they don't. They're like, I can't do it. So I mean, it's just finding your balance, meeting them where they are, finding that balance with your students, and trying to get them to produce. But they end up writing 3 different papers throughout that semester. So I kept bringing it up, putting it in their heads, plugging it in. And at the end of all that, and I gave them grades for those papers as they turned in. Then I handed their papers back to them and I gave them the posters. I said, now, see what you talked about? Now I want you to put that into a picture. Tell me, what does language equal strong hearts and minds mean? And that year I had the most, every one of the students did something different. And it was just so beautiful because I had a lot of students that they looked back at our culture, they looked at our dances, they saw where our dances were, and that's where that's where they heard the language, and that's where they brought it, and so that's what made them feel good. Then I had, but like Emma, her poster was so phenomenal, and she showed where the language was used, and it made her feel good to hear it used. And she heard it cooking over the fire, she heard it from a grandmother to a granddaughter. She heard it when getting dressed. You know, the mother's helping the daughter with the clothes. She heard the language in all these different places, and then she added some details, but that's what she said, language equals strong hearts and minds. And so it's like, you know, what she did was phenomenal, because you do hear it and you see it in all those aspects. But then I see it where my other students showed it. I had a student, and I really loved hers too, and she showed it her mother's trunk when they get ready for the dances. Her mom's trunk. She'd bring everything out, and she talked about each item, what everybody got to use. And I was like, that's what my mom does with my grandkids. And so I thought, that is so cool. But you see different things happen in every family, and everything's a little different, but we have a lot of similarities within the Osages, but everybody's different. We have 3 districts, and everybody's different, but yet we're similar. We come out looking pretty much the same, but there's differences in those homes where it happened. And it's great to hear each student go around and tell what they do. And they're like, well, I guess we do that. Well, no, I need to hear what you do in your family, because everybody's different. I said, I know in my family, I said, we're Deer Clan, and we do these things this way. I go, my dad, he's Eagle Clan. He does things this way. I said, so what do you do in your families? And then I found out that, well, these families that I've grown up around, I have a lot of their kids in my class. I didn't realize they weren't named. We always used to do that when we were little. Well, not everybody. So that was another thing that I had to learn, and then help my students with that. But all these things that I talk about with the kids, those always end up being lessons within the class. I make them go home and talk to their families and ask their families, you know, what clan are we? What district are we from? If they don't know, they have to go home and they have to research that. And they got to talk with their families. I said, it's not something you can look up in a book. This means you have to go home and have a conversation. And I go, well, I can just text my mom right now. I said, it's not a text. I don't want texts. I want you to talk, because then you're going to come back and you're going to stand at your seat and talk. And that's so terrifying for them, standing at their seat. But I'm terrified standing up here talking in front of you all too. So, that's the thing. And they're like, oh. I said, do you think I get excited about, oh yeah, I get to stand in front of the class? I said, I'm terrified every time I go up there. And then, well, you don't look like it. I was like, but I have things to say. I have things to say and things to get across for you all to hear me. And I know that if I go up there and stand, most of y'all will hear. Some of you I'm going to have to go around and individually say, and that's okay. I like doing that. And they're like, okay. But in our classroom, I talk about, we're doing language. The beginning of class, we start with our round robin, learn that in nobody's class. I love round robins. Everybody say one word in Osage. It's real little. And then, all right, 2 words, 3 words. Give me a sentence. The beginning, they couldn't do all of that. But then, second semester, they're doing it. But I can't wait, because they're like, oh, look, can I go first? Can I go first? And so that's pretty exciting. They're involved, they're engaged, and that's where I want them to be. And so then whenever I have them do these different assignments of thinking and talking with their families, I feel like I am giving back a little bit of that intergenerational learning, because we'll have parent-teacher conferences, and I have a lot of parents and grandparents, or whoever the guardians, that they bring them in and they tell me, I had to come meet you because my child says that this is their favorite class. I'm like, no. So I do not give them A's for everything. They are like, no, they really enjoy your class. I'm like, okay, great. I said, do they use their language at home? That's all. I need to know if they're using their language at home. They go, oh yes. They say the meal prayer. They pray for every meal. We have our holiday gatherings, the ones that say the prayer. I'm like, they're usually the ones that are quiet in class and they don't really talk that loud, or it's really hard to get them to talk. But they're going home and they're sharing now. So I'm like, this is wonderful, because a goal of mine that I had set for myself was I wanted it to go back to the way we learn. I wanted that, nowadays we're learning from in the classroom on through Zoom classes, through community classes, but the way we used to learn was just at home, just talking, and they're not doing it. So I feel like there are classes and the assignments that I give. I feel like they're starting to do that because the parents that give me the feedback, like they're coming home, they're teaching their younger siblings, or they're talking Osage. They're talking a language to me. Can you tell me what they're saying? That's what we'll record them and I'll tell you. And they're like, okay. Well, I had a student that was calling, they're calling their sister's names in Osage, but they go, oh, well, I don't want to do that. I said, well, this was the language. And I told them I didn't get on the live kids because they use their language. I didn't care what they said as long as it was in language, because you can't discourage that. You want them to use it. And if they can think that well and use it in a derogatory manner when there's nothing derogatory about our language. That's what I tell them. There's nothing derogatory. But it's the mannerism in which you say it. So if you want to really cut someone down, you gotta use that body language into that. And so those kids are like, so I'll see them out there in the hallways and saying stuff to each other. I'm like, oh gosh. I have other teachers that think, what is this? What are they saying? They just call them a dog. Call them a pig. It's no big deal. It's all right. It's okay. And they're like, I said, it's not cuss words. They're not cussing. They're not doing anything like that. I said, and the only bad thing they're doing is the body language. That's all they think about it. And they're like, okay. But, I think about how my classes have progressed, and my supervisor, Janice, she said, as you continue teaching in the public school, every year will get a little better. And I was like, in that first year, I was like, oh gosh, I don't know how long it'll last. Because I was ready to throw that towel in. But one day I did pull up there and I was like, okay, this is it. I'm gonna go in here, I'm gonna do this class, but I'm just gonna pack all my stuff up because I'm going, this is crazy. These kids talk awful. And then I'm going inside and I had a couple of younger kids come up and go, I can't wait to get in your class next year. And I was like, I don't want to be here. But I was like, okay, yeah. So I thought about that as I'm going in and waiting for my next class to come in. I was like, I can't let these kids run me out, because I have other kids that are coming out that they're excited because we're here and they want to learn. And they see the fun stuff that we're doing. And they heard that we went to the language fair, and that was fun. We did so well that the first year so during COVID, when we entered, you had to just scan all your posters in and do all that. But I had lots of winners. I had the grand prize winner, which was Emma, and then we also had first place, second place, and 2 honorable mentions. So we just didn't get third in the poster contest. That was pretty impressive. And then we got first and second in book, because we only entered 2 books. So everything, I was like, this is phenomenal, guys. I can't wait for next year. So this next year, we entered one of our hominy language students. They got the grand prize. And then we got first and we got second in the poster. And then we did get a few more honorable mentions. But it's another thing, just to make the wall at the language fair, because this year it's in person, you had to send your artwork in. And just to be put up on the wall out of all the hundreds of entries, that's a big deal. And that's why I try to get across to my kids, because we had a lot of students from all our schools that made the wall. That's impressive there. The new categories that we did as a classroom was, we put together a video, and my students, they played Uno in Osage. So there can be no English spoken, and I don't want to see any English words. That means on your little cards that say Uno, I don't want it to say Uno. I want it to have Osage. So they worked really hard at doing that. They put together a really good film. We placed second, so that was pretty good. We got an honorable mention in the video, but we did the mobile video, which was cool because you had to use, like the new applications and stuff that kids use. So we did a TikTok video, and in there they just talked about who they are and film, it's who you are. And so in our classroom we have football, basketball, wrestling, cheerleaders. I have a student that flies an airplane, he's in aeronautics. I have students in every sport at the school, as well as, like I said, the aeronautics. And then we also want to showcase who we are as people. So we had students that did Wakafalais on Zoli, Pasuroli, just to represent our 3 districts. We have a drum keeper in our classroom, and we have a tail dancer and a water boy. And I thought it was real important to incorporate all that, but also talk about who we are as people who take care of each other, we give to one another, and we're generous, we're brave. And so we also showcase those words as well. Those were supposed to be great things on the slide to finish that up, but that video is really cool. We got second in the mobile TikTok, the mobile video. We got second, so I thought that was pretty impressive. And I did get to take a group of students down there to see that. And so after getting to watch all the film entries and then the mobile entries, they're ready and they're made for this year. And I said, but guys, you all aren't in language next year. This is Osage Peach, you're out. You mean we can't help? We can't still be in it? I was like, they could, you let Emma be in there. She's not in our class no more. Okay, okay. So I'm excited about this next school year because I have past students that they want to help with our videos, whatever we turn in, and they still want to be in the posters and do books and comics and stuff. We did win first in comic this year. We won first in comic last year, but these students are just so talented. And in the classroom with the language, I think Stormy said something about how they use crafts and stuff, and they're always drawing and doing pictures. But that's what I try to do in my classroom. I think a lot of our Native students, we have that they're talented. They're talented in a lot of aspects, and so a lot of times that's where they're going to shine is in their art. And so if you can bring that art out of them to help them in doing their language, it also helps, and it makes them feel proud. You want your students proud. You want your children proud to be who they are and to go represent you well. So you want them to be comfortable with it and talk and show themselves. And so I think about all those things, but trying to bring in the culture and language that I've learned from my home, my parents, my grandparents, great-grandmother, and bring that into my classroom and share it with them. That I think it's been good, but I also like to influence what I've taught my kids and how my kids have taught me, because I learned so much from them. And then I have my students that they share so much of their families, and they don't think it's big, but it's really big. And trying to get them to talk more about that is just really comforting to know, because we're going to go on. We're going to, we've survived. We're here, and that's something that we talk about. I always tell my football boys, I love football. I don't care who's playing or whatever, but I love football on all different levels. And my kids that I have on the field, I said, when you go out there, I want to hear some Osage talk. And they go, stay like, what do you mean? I want to hear it. I want to hear it. So at the end of one of my games, those boys, they are out there, and they said, Wakanze. And I turn around and get them, and they go, O-gah-pah. I was like, yeah, they did it. They did what I asked. So I was so excited. And so every year, they when I go on that field with them, they often take a picture. Boy, those boys stink when I take a bullet. I go take a picture with them, and they're off. And in that picture, you can't see it, but that's what they're saying. O-gah-pah. That's my voice. So I love it. I love football. I love basketball. Like wrestling. Wrestling, I really kind of get into it. So that's not good if you watch me. So show those live streams, and I can watch it from home so that I can squirm around there on that chair myself and not worry about being seen. But I really enjoy teaching. I enjoy teaching and sharing my culture and language and learning all these students, learning from them. And they're always saying, we got to have a test. Like, when are we having that test? It's like, we're having that test on Friday. Like, Friday? But we go over on Thursday. They don't know that Thursday was the test. Because if you tell them that you're taking the test, you get that anxiety, you don't do as well. But if you just like, well, we're just going around here and I just got to do good. Well, if they did it really well, then I think we'll do it again. I mean, they do it again on Friday. We do that, but they were already tested on Thursday. And after we do all that, I hand that paper out to them on a piece of paper and tell them what they did yesterday. That was a great yesterday. They're like, so I struggled for nothing. I said, we've been doing it all year. We did this. I do this to you. You know what's going on. But anyways, I'm happy I was asked to be here, and I appreciate that. Braxton, I loved his PowerPoint. And you got to see him in that little bit of 1 hour time talking about it. It's phenomenal. And he talks like that all the time. He's just, his brain is always thinking. I think he's got a photographic memory because, we'd be talking about something. How do we say this? And he goes, hold on. He just have that head kind of nodded. And I know he's flipping through some little catalog in his mind. I'm like, I wish I had that. But he's great, and he's down to earth, and he can talk to you. And he's not afraid of saying, hey, I don't know, but let's find out. And so that's reassuring because we don't know. My dad, growing up, he always said, this is the last train out. Last train out. We don't have, we have a remote, and we have a couple of others, but they're the last ones that actually got to hear that first language spoken to those that didn't. And we have to find a way to preserve that. And I just encourage people to, we all have phones, video your families, video cooking. I did that with my nieces one year. We made squash, but we videoed it the whole time. We talked Osage in our video and we saved it. But I encourage you all to do that with your families, to get those clothes out, talk about your clothes with your sons, daughters, your nieces, nephews, grandkids. Document those because they're going to be valuable. They're valuable now, but they're going to be more valuable 10 years from now and then 25 years from now. Always document. You want that voice. They want to hear your voice. I have a recording at work that I still have for my grandma where she called me. She says, Dana, it's grandma, call me, bye. And it means a lot. I love it. But always document. You gotta use it. Thank you.
I just wanted to say good morning, relatives. How y'all doing? And I'm glad that you all made it. It made my heart feel good to see you guys here today. I got a few things. I didn't get to send my abstract in. One, I wasn't going to come. I wasn't going to come this year. It's my 4th year coming here. And today, my abstract just said I wanted to learn the language and culture for our people. I'm 45 years old. My entire life, I heard the language in the home until they start dying. And I tell a lot of people, and then some people, the elders might think, well, we've seen this coming. In my lifetime, I never thought we'd be here today where we're at. I'm talking about the Ponca. I can't speak for everybody, I'm talking about Ponca. When you hear it every day in conversation, talking about everyday life, was in the language. All our songs, people sat outside, even if they had a few homes had air conditioning when I was little. In my particular home at 7500 West Riverview, that's Horse Chief Eagle land. He was our last hereditary chief of the Ponca. he was the head chief. Now he wasn't the last chief, but he was the last Uga'xpa. That's the principal chief, no one above him. I lived on that land as a child growing up with Aldous Kuhlman. His son was Simon Horse Chief Eagle. And this is where my first thing was on my PowerPoint that I didn't bring, is where I came from. You know, a lot of people in here, there might be a few you come from a chief, but I come from many. Because back then the marriages had to be arranged because they went by a hierarchy. Some people will say there ain't no hierarchy, but there was amongst us Ponca. And on my Ponca side, I'm gonna tell it first, I'm 3/4 Ponca. But we still go by the old system, which is the blood form, CDIB. And I'm gonna name off a few chiefs that I come from. I come from Machuji, the Uga'xpa, Uga'xpa, Shonge, Nikadahi. And that's just on one of my mother's side. Those are all principal chiefs. They were the ones that did the whole running of the entire Ponca tribe. And then on her other side, they come from Sideska. At one time, he was the main chief, the guy who gave up his seat. And if some of you read that book about Stonedale Molly, that my great grandfather, Lewis Hedman, he wrote that book. Now, his daughters got killed and they were scalped and raped. He didn't put that in the book, but that's what happened to him. And to this day, no one has ever knew what tribe done that to us. So he called for all the warriors of the tribe, and at that time, we were probably 10, 15,000 strong, easy warriors. And so he asked, is there anyone brave enough to get revenge for me? And at that time, that was a bad thing, because we didn't believe in that. Ponca did anyway. And so all the chiefs, there's probably 60-some chiefs that came from our 3 villages at that time, Hublon, White, Hude, Nompewater, Scary Village, Fishmeller Village, and Gray Rope Blanket. Today they say gray blanket, but it meant a rope. The rope that was dyed with ash and suet. But so anyway, they were all mad because of what he wanted to do. And that was my grandfather, seen this, that whitetail. And he came from the Mokong clan. And so that was like unheard of for people to do something like that. They said there's a man, he goes by the name of Machuji, the little bear, little grizzly bear. He doesn't camp in the village. Everything he kills, he brings to those that lost their loved ones. He's got so many accomplishments in battle. And he said he'll never take children. And he wears his hair in a particular way. Everybody that lost loved ones, they cut their hair because in our Ponca culture, you either cut, most of the time the women cut their hair or they cut their arms, and men would cut their chest to show their mourning. And he would ask them for their hair or give away to trade for their hair. And he made a scalp, some kind of scalp cap. And he only had one horn, one buffalo horn on that cap. And so these other chiefs were telling him about this man. They say that they have no main chiefs in their line, but they had clan chiefs. And some of you that know, in here, we probably all know that we came from a clan. And they had different parts of our tribal organization and our settings. And so anyway, they asked him to come to this meeting. And in the Ponca language at that time, my grandparents and even my grandfather Lewis would have told you, I don't know if he's here, Grandpa. Well, he would have told you, the Ponca didn't have a word for Weeblahum because Weeblahum means I praise you. You got that prefix in the front. We means I to you. Lahum is the word for praise, or praise something. Lahum means I praise him, her, it. But Weeblahum, I praise you. But that was the closest word that we had, that thank you, when the Europeans came here. This is how Ponca did it. With one hand. One hand, that word thank you. But my grandfather came like this way. And to the chieftain, it was utter disrespect because of the way he came with both his hands up. And so Uga'xpa asked him, can you do these 4 things for me? And I'm going to make this short because I ain't got very much time to talk. But I'm telling you how my family became chieftainship and the dominant chief in the tribe. He accomplished all 4 of them things. Some of them were horrific, but it's what was asked of him. And so he accomplished that. And he gave his seed up. And it was unheard of at that time to do that because you got to remember, Uga'xpa only had 2 daughters. He didn't have no children beside them. And they said, but you got brothers that it could pass down to with children. He said, no, I'm going to pass my seed to the man that gets revenge for me. And when my grandfather did that, he gave his seed away. And that is how it switched from the Moncon clan, the medicine clan, to the Dhegiha of our Ponca people. And so when Little Bear, he got that seed, he said, I'm not going to keep it. And they said, well, that's your right. You've done everything we had. Well, I asked. And so he had 2 brothers because Little Bear told him the same thing that they said. He said, I'll never have children. I'll never camp in the hulaga. I'll always give everything I have, and I'll die in battle. And he did die in battle. And so he gave it to his brother, Uga'xpa. And his brother was Downstream. That's where my grandfather Lewis comes from. Downstream. Walks on the ground. And so that's where I come from on that. So that's why I wanted to let you guys know that even though you're thinking, why you said these guys they married for a reason, they did. But Uga'xpa married back into the predominant family. And so that's why I'm going to bring that. And I also come from Wachigah, Shinga. Some of you Maha probably know what that means. And I'll tell you guys what that means when I'm done talking. And then we also come from Shinga. He was the clan chief of the Dhegiha clan. And at that time, and so some of you don't get confused, at that time, our clans and tribe was so big that we had multiple clan chiefs, not just one. The Osage clan had the most chiefs because it was the largest clan amongst the Ponca. And then we got Uga'xpa. Uga'xpa was the son of Uga'xpa. Then that name stayed in the clan. There's a lot of Uga'xpa, which means white star. And there's a lot of Uga'xpa. There's only one left in the Ponca tribe now. Abby Whitetail. And on my father's side, I'm going to tell you his Ponca side first because my father was more than one tribe. He come from Dhegiha. That was Buffalo Bull Chief or Buffalo Chief. They translated to Tonde, not Kuge. They said that Tonde means ground, mountains. But when you're moving on the ground, Kuge is the sound of a drum, or it could mean drum. And so they say that when we were fighting the Lakota Nation, when they heard our white horse riders coming up, and our white horse riders was like our elite. Only horses they rode were white. And so when they came, they were called Uga'xpa, those that sit on white. And so when they came, and my grandfather was at the head of that charge on my father's side. And that's how he got that name, Tonde, because it sounded like a herd of buffalo coming. And when we went to meet the Lakota Nation, they all ran because of what they heard. And so that name was given to him. And then he comes from Dhegiha. Today they shorten that to Yellow Bull, but it means Yellow Buffalo Bull. He was a main chief of the Osage clan. Out of their clans, they had a lot of chiefs, but he was the main one of them that spoke for them. The Tongan Oji Jinga, Little Standing Buffalo. He's one of the ones that made it down here to Oklahoma. He died here. And he was also a clan chief of the Osage clan. And then on that same side, I'm just telling you who I come from. I want you to know that. I don't know if I said that in these 4 years that I've been here. And then I come from MacDonald, that married into the Ponca people. He immigrated. He came from Scotland. He was an immigrant. And then I come from Collins. One of our council members was here. I guess he left. But he's a Collins. And so I come from two clans. And the Scottish people, even though I don't look like them, I don't look like a beautiful Ponca man, but I'm part white. And then I come from two French names, Rhodd and Primo. But that's where I come from on my dad's side as a Ponca. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to his other side. He was Yankton, Dakota. And that Primo that I last won, that French name Primo, he was a Ponca man and a Frenchman that married Uga'xpa. That means good horse in Dakota. He was a chief of the Dakota, one of the Dakota bands. I don't know everything, but his daughter was a Dakota that married my grandfather, Verdell Primo. It was O.C. Ponca and Yankton and French. And then so you guys are thinking, well, this guy's name is Eagle Rhodd. Well, my Rhodd name comes from Potawatomi, from the Prairie Band Potawatomi. Well, my grandfather, he married a citizen named Potawatomi woman. When he moved to Oklahoma, when they got moved from Kansas, they made him join the citizen band, but he was Prairie Band Potawatomi. We still carry that in our family, even though I'm just a smidge of it. But between Mayetta and Shawnee, we have 106 chiefs, and some still on council today. I know people probably thinking, well, why is he saying this? Well, I'm letting you know that even though I come from all kinds of chiefs, I didn't always make the right choices. Can you hear me? I didn't always make the right choices, but I tried today to do what I can for my Ponca people, because that's all I know. I don't know nothing about the Yankton. I don't know nothing about the Potawatomi. Ponca. That's all I know. And I got all the women's names too, but in our tribe, I don't know why, but they never mentioned their names. And that's something that we need to start doing. Dhegiha. We got to start remembering our women, because they're the ones that carry this language so long when we died in battle or we just not around. We got to start honoring our Dhegiha women, our Umaha women, our Osage women, our Call women, our Quapaw women, our Ponca women. We got to remember them. So today, start writing their names down, because they don't do that. You look at all these deals, they're going to go by, this is who I'm from, like I just did, all the mail. We got to stop that. We got to bring it, times have changed. You got a lot of people say, well, it ain't like that in the past. Well, our language ain't like that in the past either. So today, make that effort to honor your mothers, grandmothers, your sisters, your daughters, your aunts, granddaughters. And my second PowerPoint was, how many singers do we have in here? Tribal singers, any type. We got one hand came up. Out of all you guys that raised your hand, how many of you could pray in your language? There you go. Today, we're falling away from that. Just because you sing at the drum and can sing these songs, it's just a bit of who we are. Today, everybody talks about dancing and going out the drum or Native American church or this or that. We're forgetting the meaning of learning to speak your language and knowing it. And it comes from our assimilation and all the horrible things we've been through, but we're past that now. We have to start doing the best that we can. I just got custody of my grandchildren 4 months ago. That's all they want to hear is Omaha songs, Ponca songs. I played them whitetail one time, and now they don't want to hear nothing but whitetail. It was Ponca, but that's all they want to hear. So I play it every day. I got to go through it. Grandpa, we want to hear our Ponca songs. I said, they're Omaha, but we're the same. They don't understand it because they're little. But they sing it, and then they clap their hands like the drum. And so every day except for these days I'm not here, they're wondering where I'm at. They're messaging me, having them message me from home. And I teach them simple things that I learned growing up. Wala te gigo when the food's done. Wala te need there when the food is done. That's when you tell them. Wala te gigo. And then my little granddaughter was saying, Wala te gigo. I said, no, you say Wala te gigo. And so now I have, I speak male, so and I also speak the woman dialect. I can speak just like any woman because I grew up with predominant women. When my men folk died off, I didn't have nothing but grandmas and my mother. And so I know, Emily can tell you sometimes I'll say something in a woman's way because I'm glad there was nobody around. I'm serious. I'm telling you, I know it like that, but I didn't grow up that way, but I know it like that too because even in my adult life, just my grandmas were alive. All my men folk are gone. I'm the oldest male of my family. They're all gone now. Makes me sad sometimes. And so anyway, I tell them, Uhida, Malingo, go bathe. My granddaughters are rough, boy. When they see this, Grandpa ain't talking bad. I'm just saying you guys are rough. They're ranch rough. We're from White Eagle. Man, I'm trying to go. I said, didn't you have them clothes on Sunday? I said, well, it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday. It's time to bathe. So, yeah. Only bathe on Saturday the old days. And so anyway, you got to tell them that. Sometimes I get frustrated. I say, good job. Jump, believe the hole. Get out of here and go to bed. Because my mother used to say that to me, and I'm trying to sit there and watch Johnny Carson. Some of you guys might be too young and don't know who that is, but Johnny Carson was it. That was like my whole thing was to watch Johnny Carson. My mom was there. You got Malia. Get out of here. And so you have to teach them, and I tell them their Ponca names. My granddaughter Carlita, her name is Maitai. That means new moon, the woman's name. And my little granddaughter, Mylene, her the Nomze means that. And some people say that's untranslatable, but I talked to an elder and they told me that it had reference to Mose that when them Europeans finally came, they had wind chimes and they were clinging together like this. Or blowing in the wind. And so I tell all my children their name. My little boy, I don't know if you guys seen him here, his name's Randy. I didn't know I was going to have a kid in my 40s. So I gave my 22-year-old son, my brother Randy's name, O-gah-Pos. He who fears no land, whether he's going on a war party or going eventually to steal horses or women, because remember, we did that back then. You said, oh my God, they stole. Yes, we did. Ain't nobody full blood, believe that. And so, back to what I'm saying, poor Randy, he had to take a child's name, a Ponca name, for our children. We thought, it's Star. And so I don't know what I'm going to do as he gets bigger. And I'm afraid about it and see how he is, because a lot of times it's dependent on your plan and your attitude and the way you are as a child becoming a young man. And so I'll give him a name, but I tell him that, and my children always tell me, this is my Ponca name, and they'll tell me. Or my 5-year-old daughter, I'll start, don't get out of the hole. That means don't bother it. Leave it alone. Some people will say, I'll be Dhegiha. They use that as don't touch it. Or Dhegiha, don't touch it. But when you're telling them to leave it alone, you say, shonk it out, or shonk it out. Different ways to say it depending on you're describing something when you're touching. That's why you got that K and that Ponca, DK. K, Ma, K, all these different articles, they mean something in our language. And in my classes, when I was teaching, I haven't been teaching in a couple months. But when you teach, I got to teach them the fundamentals of our language, because people say, "Why well, I only heard it this way?" That's because that's all you know. There are so many ways in our language. It is so descriptive and direct on how we speak. You leave no element for, I wonder what he's talking about. No. I learned from Ponca that were born in 1897. My grandfather, David Buffalo, some of you might be alive, might still know him. Some of you Ponca, some of you Omaha, Ponca, Uga'xpa. And my grandfather, Simon Horse Chief Eagle, he was born in 1901. All my grandparents were fluent speakers. All my relatives spoke the language. And let me tell you something, amongst us Ponca, I can't speak for nobody else. When your family was fluent speakers, it drew other fluent speakers, because we were coming at that time when I was born in the 70s. The language was already dying off, even then. And so they always came in groups to those that they knew spoke the language. And I was blessed to hear that. Blessed to be taught to grandson, nephews, son, brother. I got a sister right here from my Collins family, Charmaine. Right here, look at my sister. Wave at him, sister. But you see, the age difference, it doesn't matter, because you have to go by your relationship. You have to know who you are. Know where you come from. And it ain't just, back in the day, this is what Ponca say. That's your parents' fault that you don't know. It isn't entirely true. Our assimilation, our colonization, how do what you see today. But today it takes a lot of guts to get up here. It takes a lot of courage to want to learn who you are and where you come from. Don't be afraid. We all make mistakes. And I tell you, man, when I talked to Ponca growing up, well, I got talked to Dad, they said, "You ain't saying it right. You're going to make me look bad." That's my grandmother told me. You got to learn to speak it correctly. You're going to make us look bad. You're going to think we taught you that way. And there wasn't nobody worse than my mother on me. My mother had me just not even want to even attempt when she was on me so hard. You're not saying it right. Then my grandmother told her, "Uga'xpa, Claudia," told her, "Behave, be quiet." She said, "Dushpa, Gia." And so I came to her. She had a list of 5 men. She said, "All our men folk are gone now. Even my brother, they're all gone. Paul Little Boys, my grandfather. Lingay. Parrish Williams, my grandfather, Lingay. My grandfather Sherman, he passed away less than a year ago. He was one of my greatest teachers. He told me, he said, "Grandson, come by. I'm getting lonely." I go by and check on him, cut his grass or cut wood. And he told me, come over. I put him off and he died. Died a few months ago. His name was Dr. Sherman Warrior. One of our fluent speakers. He worked with the Wajaji in the Eskimo. Don't give up on your elders. Don't say you're going to check on them and don't check on them. Don't feel what I feel in my heart. That want to have someone to conversate with, someone to ask questions, someone just to we just sit there and listen to how you felt. It's too late now. It's too late. Don't let it be too late again. Don't let it be too late for the language. I feel blessed in here. I got so many relatives, sisters, brothers, and their uncles, aunties. Every time I see my Omaha uncles and aunties, my Ponca aunties, makes me just want to smile. You know, I ain't got a pretty smile, but we have to stand together. I got something else we're going to talk about. I almost jumped into it right now, but we have to stand together no matter what we're facing today. And this is my other point of how I learned, how I had to be passionate about the language to learn it even better than what I heard it. You guys will never learn the language if you don't truly feel that passion and know that that's who you are. That God gave that right, each and every one you sit in here amongst me. God gave you that right. It's up to you to take control and say, I'm going to learn my language today. I don't care if I don't say the words right in the beginning. I'm going to make every attempt I can make because that's who I am. And I see so many teachers in here. And I'm so glad to see my sister Arlene Walker over there. Still here, going strong, sister. I love you. I'm glad you're here. Makes my heart feel good to see you in person. So many uncles here, aunties. So proud, and I want to apologize to my sister Storm. Second year in a row. Last year I caught the very end of her. This year I had to finish a job. Missed her whole presentation and caught O-Guah-Pos. That wasn't my intention. I just have to work hard now. And we have to support each other in our language departments. The Ponca, Oklahoma, we don't have one yet, but it's coming. And we have to be supportive. It don't matter who's in there. Support each other. Uga'xpa, we're pitiful. Just because you might be able to pray in your language, don't forget the rest of it's pitiful. But you don't have to be. You don't have to be. Remember that. You do not have to be. It's time to start getting fired up. Some of these programs here are so good. I hope we're there one day as Ponca people. I'm not talking about Ponca, Oklahoma, Nebraska. I'm talking about Ponca people. Ain't no white man, no government gonna say, oh, you're Mashte Ponca. You're Osage Ponca. Oh, you're Ponca from Oklahoma. You're Ponca from Nebraska. We're Ponca. If we let them divide us and keep dividing us in that way, then who are we gonna be in the end? Remember that. And so out of all this earlier, I asked you guys a question, how many singers could pray? Now I want to know how many of you can pray in your own language. And it don't matter if you just say, walk on to Uga'xpa. Raise your hand if you can pray in your language. Don't be afraid. You guys remember that and you keep on going. There's so many of our children waiting for that. And that is the prayer. Walk on to Uga'xpa. And Dhegiha walk on to Uga'xpa. Let them grow. And it ain't about who can pray the longest. Don't worry about who can pray the longest. Just say the most elegant prayer. What's in your heart will walk on to the Creator. That's what matters. Your one-on-one relationship with God is what matters. Some of you might get real good at praying and you're going to think, well, I'm going to pray as long as I can. Don't be that kind of person. Pray with your heart. That's how I was taught. The other day, my cousin Brian Stoner, he posted a deal with my grandfather David Buffalohead in Dhegiha. He was praying in Ponca. And the 500 some people that viewed it didn't even know what he was saying. But I did. And he was talking about how he saw how it was becoming the youth or the young children are not learning. Our people are drinking. And then when he started crying, he talked about my grandfather, Simon Horse Chief Eagle, because he died a few months before this prayer. Before that, my grandfather, because they come from the chieftainship, they're the only ones that stood up there. Now anybody can stand amongst Poncas and pray. Before that, you had to have a hereditary lineal right to be where you are. Now anybody can stand up and talk. That's what we've become today. And since it's that way today, we need to start uplifting all our young people to take turns speaking. Don't think I'm getting mad because they're all gone. I want us to all have that ability to get up and talk. We got so many people in here that are at that point in their life where I told my uncle earlier, I'm going to say his name, love you, uncle. He said, I'm shy. You got to break out of that because one day he might be the one leading the language. One day he might be the one that everybody's going to. And it's my job to encourage him to get there. I'm not that guy that says, look at me, hey, I know a little bit of the language, I know the culture, I can sing songs, I make songs. I name people. When you do it for self, it don't mean nothing. If it ain't for the people, the whole, the greater good of all of us, it don't mean nothing. I don't care if you don't like somebody, you help them. They ask you, they tell you, have whatever your relationship with. Oh God, he would come to hope. He would come to me, help me. You help them. God sees everything. Wakanda, Dhegiha. He sees everything we do. Everything. If you think that you can do something, he don't see it, you're wrong. And your life will reflect that. You got people all the time that think that way. It's not our judge to point fingers at them. And if you do today, stop and start praying for them. Start praying in your language and pray for them. That God change their hearts. That God help you become stronger. Because I promise you, the more you pray in your language, the more that you guys keep trying, you're going to be at peace with yourself. Because I could talk all day in English, but when I pray in Ponca, there's almost a time I can't not cry. It is so intimate. It is so intimate when you see our elders. I ain't never seen an elder in my life pray in Ponca that didn't cry for my grandfather, but he's strong. He goes to so many funerals. And I seen him cry one time in my life, and I knew something was wrong. And I prayed in Ponca for him. And I never seen my grandfather. He's not here. But when he cried, when you see a man 90 years old and you never see him cry in your life, you know something's got to be wrong. And so I got to be there for one of my elders that needed me. And that's what we all need to be. And then my next PowerPoint, man, I had so much on these PowerPoints. I didn't bring it because I wanted to come. My grandfather encouraged me to come. I'm going through some things in my life, but I won most of my court hearings on. I got one left. But I still don't know. I told a friend of mine on Messenger, I said, I don't know if I want to teach no more. Because of what I'm going through. And like I said, I won almost everything in court. And I already started suing people. But pray for me, because I don't know if I'm going to teach anymore. When I win this next one, and I know I am, it's my last one, I think I'm going to go back to the oil field. I made a lot of money doing that. But I didn't want to do it because of the simple fact that they're destroying our earth. But I'm having a hard time. I want you guys to know that I'm having a hard time. And some of these people are laughing at me because of the hard time I'm going through, even though I got one court thing left to beat. You know, last night my son, he told me, he said, I left Dad. He said, I didn't have no money to feed the kids because you're not here. I lost all my jobs. I had 6 different jobs that I worked for. I lost all of them because of an allegation, and I already won that allegation. And I got one left to win. And I got paid right before I come over, and I got paid to talk today. So when I come home, I got to buy groceries. I've never in my life, since I've been home, have felt the way I feel today. That I couldn't support my own family and my 2 granddaughters. I have never felt this way. I made over $100,000 a year, and I gave away. I got nothing because I give it away. And not one time, at 2 months and a half, I ain't had no job. Not one time have I known somebody come check on me. offered to help me something. I missed a good friend of mine's speech that I apologized to earlier because I had to work till 12 that night. And I drove here in dirty clothes. But I had to because my family didn't have nothing to eat. Never in my life have I been this way. I've been a provider my entire life. Since I was 11 years old. My dad died at 8. And I went to tell my son last night that he was a coward for leaving because he couldn't feed my grandchildren because I wasn't there. But I didn't say nothing. I just prayed. I sat up late last night smoking cigarettes, thinking about how people could ruin your life by lying. And even when I won my civil cases, I don't think my name will ever be right again. But I mean it. Pray for my family. I got 5 kids of my own at home, 2 granddaughters. But I'll make it because I believe in God. And all these people having fun laughing at me. I pray for you guys. Those that are watching live, those that left. There's people left here for a reason. Because I knew I was going to get up and talk. Now, we're going to go to my other PowerPoint. It says, why were some of our speakers reluctant to teach? Does anybody know why? I can tell you the reasons what they told me. One of my uncles, I'm not going to name their name, he told me, he said, language is dead, why are you going to try? Why are you going to try to teach it? This was in 97. He said, why are you going to try to teach it? It's gone. Another one of my uncles, he said, nobody wants to learn. He said, I'll take it with me when I go. I've heard that over 20 times. I'll take it with me when I go. I said that to my friend in the message. You know, I'm at that point, you know, where the first time in my life, I don't know what direction I want to go. Do I want to try to stay working and helping the tribe and the communities? Or go beyond 6 months to a year, gone in the oil field and come back. But right now, when you're facing certain things, I understand why they said what they said. That I like it, no, but I understood it. And if I step away from teaching, it ain't because I want to. I got to feed my family. And I'm not going to beg nobody for nothing. I'm just asking for prayer. I'm asking for nothing from no one here but prayer. And this is one thing that we had a discussion on about 30 of us about a month ago. This is what they think at home. And I'm not talking about this is what they really think. I put, why do people think that they have to be around the drum or dance or be in the NAC or know Christian hymns or know this or that? Why do they have to think that? We say that they know the language and culture because that's only cultural. Without your language, your culture is dead. I want you to know that without your language, your culture is dead. And if you don't believe that, then you're gravely mistaken. I'm going to say it again. Without your language, your culture is dead. And those that are around the drum, those that dance, how many of them know the language? 90% of them probably don't know. They don't know what they're singing. We have to teach them so that they can teach and it'll spread out. The dancers, the other singers, we have to teach them. There can't be just one person know it all, because they don't. There's 2 teachers left in the Ponca Nation. That's my grandfather, Lewis, my great-grandfather. That was my great-grandfather's little brother, baby. He don't look like a big baby. And myself. If I die on my way home or he dies of old age, It's going to be hard for our people. You can only do so much with books. You can only do so much with recordings, but it's a start. We have to try. There has to be more teachers, more Ponca standing up. So remember that, those of you at Ponca, don't be afraid to teach. You got it in your blood. It's in your DNA to teach. I'll support you. This is what my grandfather, Simon, he's my great-grandfather, Simon Horseshoe Eagle. He said that education was the only way for the survival of our people. He reiterated what his father, Horseshoe Eagle, said, and his father, Chief White Eagle, before him. They told us in my home all about my grandfather, because my grandfather, White Eagle, he was the one that came down when we got removed. Everybody talks to Grandpa Standing Bear. That was my grandfather's first cousin. His mother was Dhegiha, but his dad was Osage. I'm talking about clans. But still, Standing Bear was my grandfather's little uncle, because in our tribal custom, the father's sister is your me. Your mother's mother is your mother's, and your little mother's your big mother. Mama, English, they say mama tongue, more feminine. Or Inaha. But White Eagle had to make all these horrific decisions when we came here. It's either stay and fight and die. And when I say die, it ain't because we're cowards. They took all our guns. They took all our bow and arrows, our spears. They took all our tools that we used in the field, our pickaxes. They took it all. They took our horses. They took our wagons. The only way they were going to fight was with their hands or clubs or rocks they could pick up. He had to make a horrible decision as a chief. Do we stay and fight? Or do we go to Indian territory? To a land that we don't know. They said he prayed for days. He went out. He fasted. He didn't eat. Because they only had a short time, a few days. And they made them go with soldiers. And when he had to make that choice, Uga'xpa, big soldier. Uga'xpa, big soldier. He was my grandfather's, one of his greatest warriors in combat when they fought side by side. He tried to kill my grandfather. He said, "This is our home. Are you a coward not to stay and fight?" Everybody knows my grandfather, White Eagle, he had the greatest war honors in our Ponca tribe. Some of you probably don't even know about what they used to. Those are our tribal war honors amongst the Ponca and Huma. There's 6 of them. But he told my grandfather, "Are you a coward?" This was bigger than just a fight against another tribe. This is bigger than that. The whole tribe would have been killed. The men for sure. The women probably would have had to go to a fort or come down here or take hut, get raped. Who knows? Horrific things happened at that time. But my grandfather said that's the only way for the survival of our people. That is the only way for the survival of our people as a whole. When we got to Indian country, I got all those old letters and I heard the stories in person. That first year, we lost 101 Poncas from malaria. That second year, 117 from malaria and starvation. And at that time, as a Native American people, you would think, who would ever die of starvation because we could hunt and fish? But that is how bad our people went through it. This is before Grandpa Standing Bear, Manchu knows you, with the Dhegiha. Osnyata, Alai, before he went back up north. This goes back into what I'm talking about. he said, the only way is to educate yourself with the white man's way. He said, we will not survive. And when I was little, when I heard that, you know what I thought? I thought he was a coward because he didn't want to fight. Because at Ponca and Whitey, we're taught to fight. Those of us, there's Poncas here that didn't grow up in Whitey, that are here today. But I grew up there. We grew up fighting. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. We grew up fighting for everything. And I couldn't see how my grandfather, this great Whitey bull, Uga'xpa, didn't want to fight. But now as an older man, how ignorant was I? Because this was bigger than him. This was the whole Ponca nation, what was left of it. And so as the years went on, we lost so many children. And then when they moved us down here, a lot of Ponca might not even know. We lost over 600 children. That's why they made that song. They made this song for our children that died, and then later it became for those past, present, and future children. Yo, ho, yo, hey, yo, ho, hey, yo, ho, hey, yo, ho, hey, yo, hi, yo, ho. If you didn't know what that song was made for, see those ones that stood up? They knew what that song meant. That is why it's so important for you to know your language. They honored them by standing. One day they went home. That's what we're at today. And you guys probably think, oh, we don't know what Eagle's going to say when he gets up there because I got so much passion for my people. Don't give up. Learn. 600 some children. A couple hundred elders. Raise your hands if you know what happens when you take away children and you take away the elders. What does that mean to a people? You take away their future and their history. Ponca people, you're still here today. After we lost so many elders, we lost so many children, you're still here today. That's something to be thankful about. That is where we're at today. I don't know each and every one of your stories of you guys, except for our Omaha relatives. But the rest of you guys, you got moved here with us. And I thank God that we're all in the same area. The majority of us that did get moved, we are here. This is what we know today. This is our country. And this, I got two last points I'm going to touch on real fast, and we're gonna go ahead and end this little thing here. How can we avoid or stop micromanagement from our councils? Ponca don't have a language department. We've never had one in my lifetime. We had a speaker or a teacher, but not a department. Here in Oklahoma, I have to say that here because the Ponca, our other half, they got a department. We don't. We never had one. Now, if you want to call it one man saying that's a department, we never had one. So we got to figure out what we can do on that because we got $93,000 that's been sitting in an account since 2021. And I don't know if we're ever gonna have one down here, but like I said, right now, I'm probably going back into the oil field. I gotta work. I'm not getting by with what I'm doing now. But when that department comes, I'll always be there to support whoever's in it, because that grant was wrote in my name. It's an A&A grant. All your tribal fields, you know what an A&A grant is. You know what ARPA funds are, but we didn't have no ARPA funds put into our language or anything. Not $1. And we got 93,000 and some change that's been sitting there since 2021 because of politics. It's about ready to be given back. You know, I tried to work with people, but it goes back to politics. It's not the people I try to work with, it's the politics. And so pray for us on that too, because we need to change our constitution. We'll bring it up in our next annual meeting that we have to incorporate that to be in our constitution, the preservation of our language and culture. It has to be. And so pray for us on that. And if nobody's got any ideas on how we can do that to avoid that or stop that, because micromanagement, it's always going to run things. It's always going to intervene, especially if you don't know the language or you're not educated. It's always going to get in the way. And the last thing I got is, now, how do we stop knocking each other down and move forward with the language? And it doesn't matter how good or what one does, it's for the people. People are always going to badmouth and talk behind each other's back. And I think just Ponca, that's all tribes. I know secondhand and firsthand from some people, it's cognitive tribes. You know, call them what the white people call us in old days. And we're related. But we have to stop that. And we might not be able to stop it in a political sense, but we got to stop it when it comes to the language and the culture. And so how do we do that? How do we move forward in the language? Some of you guys are great. I mean, you guys ain't got no interference. I know you guys got it good, but you ain't. But I'm sure you guys have to fight to get to where you're at. Those of you that are established. But for the Poncas, it's rough. So keep us in your prayers. Take a hold.
So, just kind of gather my thoughts a little bit. You know, it's been a couple wild years for me. Same as everybody. The pandemic was especially transformative for myself. I was a nurse with Indian Health Service for 31 years. I have to be careful when I say that around. My mom now lives in a nursing home in Fayetteville, and it's really nice when it's real swank there. 100% white people there. I don't know what they would do if somebody Indian wanted to meet them. But a lot of professors from the University of Arkansas, lovely people, and they really like education. They had at one time let me speak for them, and they want to hear all about our Osage language. One of the best audiences I've ever had. You know, people that really listen to what you're saying. But I have to be careful when I tell my mom's friends that I'm a nurse, because I don't know what it is about those old people. They're like, have you ever seen a rash like this? You know, I'm taking this medication that the doctor said nobody's ever had it before. And I said, Mom, you know, don't tell them I'm a nurse, you know. I'm not that kind of nurse, you know. And so we decided that if somebody asked, she would tell them I was an exotic dancer. Shut that down. But I was extremely lucky as a child. Now I see it more so than ever. I thought everybody was raised this way. I had a lot of visiting with my grandparents on both sides of the family. My grandparents and my family was one that we did move a lot because my dad's work, but we always had visits in our home with family all along. In a way that people don't really do much anymore. So there would be always somewhere when we lived in Denver. There were people who would stop in to see about us, and that's how those old people used to do on both sides of the family, just see about us. My parents, my dad was well. Let me go way back. great grandparents. Let me back up a little bit. You know, I was a nurse for 31 years, and I ended up getting all the way up to, I was a nurse consultant for the Billings area in Montana with Indian Health Service. And usually I have people to help me with, you know, like PowerPoints, because what a lot of people don't know about me is I'm dyslexic, as can be, as we say in the hood, dyslexic like that, you know. So I don't know what it is, but I have a crazy dyslexia with money, with numbers and symbols.
Good money.
And my daughter, it used to drive my dad crazy because back when I was going to school, people didn't really think about learning disabilities and whatnot. I was a pretty good student, but the first time it really hit things is when we started long division, and I was great in math when I was a kid. I loved to do good in school, and I was a good student. But then I get a long division, you know, with the bracket, and I'm like, what the heck is? I couldn't even figure out what it was, and it would bother. You know, all these years I never really knew why that was, and it used to drive my dad crazy because he would help us with our homework. Not a real pleasant experience. My dad was great, but you know, they couldn't figure out why the heck I could do numbers and symbols. And to the point when I was in high school, my senior year, you know, you have that visit with the counselor that says, you know, your aptitude says you should, you know, be a philosopher or whatever. And they told me, we looked at your stuff and we think you should be in clerical, you know. I had never taken a keyboard class in my life, and I still can't type. There's something about this right-left thing with my hands that I can't do either. And at the time, I had already, you know, my parents were very pro-college. They expected all of us to go to college right out of high school. And this is how the conversation went with my parents. And again, I'm the sixth of 7 kids. So my parents had been over this road before with some of my other siblings. And my mom and dad were like, you know, so I was like, I would like to be a choreographer and a designer of painting. And my parents were like, well, my grandmother was a graphic artist, and she was a painter, but she was a housewife. My grandfather was a comptroller for wrapping up. But they were like, oh, no, you know, you need to have something where you're going to be able to support yourself. So, as my mom says, you can do art in your spare time. So, and at the time that I had this conversation with the school counselor, I had already been accepted at Arizona State University, and to go into the nursing program. So it was kind of odd. And I remember telling my mom, did anyone else think it was weird when I was a senior in high school? I was in honors physics and remedial math. So I went from being, and I was in fourth year of Spanish. So it was like, did anybody think that was weird when I was in remedial math? But my mom was like, you wouldn't think so much about it. So, but I'll get back to it. So one of 7 kids. But I have to look out here too and see all my folks around me too. So Dana Daylight and her baby, Miss Rulo, and Robin, sorry, Larry Mercer, Lena, and Karen, and Carolyn, and her mama, Charlene. Charlene is related to my children. I was married to a Pawnee man. I like to tease them. The Pratts just love me. You know, those Pawnees just love me. And but I was their in-law, and so there were 7 of those kids, and I was born in Denver. My dad had gotten a job in Denver, and he was a Korean combat veteran, and after he got out of the service, he went on the GI Bill and got his education and worked in the oil fields as well. But he got a job, and we ended up in Denver. And at the time, my grandmother Bessie and Dana's great grandmother Nanny Luttrell were friends, and they wanted our families to know each other, so we wouldn't be lonely in Denver. So that's how we got to know each other. Very many long years. We still have a relationship net to this day with the Luttrells and the Grays. But our grandmothers all the time. My life was, either visiting with my grandmas on this side or my grandmas on my mother's side. So we spent a long time around my grandparents, and I didn't really realize how valuable that was and how unusual it was too. Because we'll get back to this. So I have one of one of these talks in a while. So how I ended up here at this conference today is in this crazy couple last years. I used to work for the Osage Language Department as a contract teacher. And it was a part-time job because I was already working as a nurse for the in-house service. And so I got the job. Well, first, let me go way back. When I was growing up, a lot of Osages were having classes, and there were Quapaws that were having classes. The format was usually something like, sitting around a table or having some kind of meal and then having your classes to go with it. A lot of it was vocabulary. But something that was different about those classes then, as to where now we started with kinship terms. That's how all the classes that I went to started with kinship terms. It's kind of like Mr. Rhodd was saying. Who are you? Who are you among your people? And it's not just birth order, which, there's a first son, second son, third son. But I was lucky enough to have a class that was taught by Ed Reddy Sr. And he talked a lot about birth order. And he's really funny too. I like, the humor of Indians too. So we've got your first daughter is like mom's right hand man, second daughter is just like the sweetheart, dad's buddy, and third is like Alcinta, and anything after third is Kaji, which, as Ed Reddy was saying, you're just a box of puppies. That's what Kaji is. So I'm one of those Kajis, and I was at the end of the line, and like what I've told my kids. I mean, literally, when you're like the fifth daughter, nobody asks you to be in charge. I mean, seriously, nobody asks you to be in charge. You don't get to be in charge of anything. You don't get to babysit. You have to like some rules. And the people that you're babysitting, my little sister was like, how hard can that be? And and it was amazing. It kind of carried over too. When I had my horse, I had a beautiful horse Hank, and he was my baby. He recently passed away. But when I had Hank, when you train a horse, somebody's got to be in charge, and we have to work all the time. And that's how my folks taught me is when you're training an animal, working with a horse, put your hands on them every single day. And you got to work on something, even if it's just standing still or walking or whatever. And so I'd always tell Hank, I'm going to be in charge. You don't know how intoxicating that is for the Alcintas. I get to be in charge. So every day I show up, I'm going to have carrots, but I'm going to be in charge. And every day I'm going to be in charge. And if someday you come, I come and I'm not here, I'm going to put somebody in charge behind me. So Hank is never, ever, ever going to be in charge. But I take care of you and you take care of me. The thing about, training the horses, I just never push him past his limits or do anything to glorify myself that's harmful to him. So there's that. But so when we get back to the family relationships and that kinship terms, so much of our Osage ways and our Quapaw ways are tied up in those kinship terms. Whether it be, the extended family, within your own family, and, we're revitalizing our present, and I'll get to this about revitalizing our present classroom. I think it's valuable to really think about going back to kinship terms as a beginning and sort of learning how the relationships are, where you are within those people. Those classes all were, before for for a millennium, our language was unwritten. It was an unwritten language. All of our languages were unwritten. I had a funny thing happen during the pandemic. I was really desperate for stuff to read and couldn't go to the library and all this kind of stuff. And so I was at the drugstore one day and I picked up this thing, Great Civilizations of the Ancient World. I'm like, heck yeah. This would be interesting. I was really like history. And I looked, not one thing from North America, not one. I mean, they had Chinese history going back to, 500 BC and stuff. And it's like, did anybody notice that there were like a bunch of Indians in North America? Did anybody notice that anybody see like some, I don't know, mound building? I don't know. Like, it was just really crazy. And I thought, well, how in the world would they even know? We don't have a written history. And I just thought, well, isn't that something that people would not know about our history because they couldn't read about it? They couldn't look it up in the library. They couldn't read about it, look at ancient texts for it. And I happened to read, I'm also, my grandmother was Irish, 100% Irish. And all my life, my parents have always told us about the stories of our people, how we got here, how we survived. And the Irish were very much like the Indians, very much so. In that Britain or England, they basically took over their country and kicked them all out, and they called it the pig famine, and which was a big lie, actually, because what they were doing was they were forcing the native Irish out and calling it, they're off for a better life in the United States. No, they pushed them out. I'm trying to use this word more, diaspora, when people are pushed out and scattered. And it happens all over the world all the time. And so I happen to, I've always had a real love for the Irish too and the language. When I was early on in our language classes with Hazel Harper, there's a lady from Hominy, her name was Hazel Harper, and she also had language classes too. And one of the things that she would say that the reason why I love this language so much, I believe, is because this is the language my mother talked to me when I was a baby. And she talked about being in some of the subjects kind of choked up. She talked about being in boarding school. A lot of the Osages ended up at the St. Louis Academy, which was a girls' boarding school right by the church. So she said, my sister and I became more than sisters because we were all that we had. They would get very lonely at school. The distances weren't as far as what you would say when people had to go to Carlisle or whatever, but still long enough. And when my uncles, my grandmother's brothers had to go to Indian school, to boarding school, they sent a wagon for him and picked him up. If you did not send your kids, they would not give you rations or any way to live. So, and what my grandmother told us is her brothers ran home before the wagons got back. And people just missed their kids so much, missed their families so much. And so she would say, we became more than sisters. And that's all we had was that language and each other. And it was saying, and I thought about that with my grandmother too, because I always loved the way that she had her talking. If you know that the Irish are very much love of the spoken word. So we happened to go over there on the trip, as a family trip to Ireland. My mom in one of the settlements that we got with the Osages, she's got lifetime stay with my dad's handwrites. And so she rounded us all up. My mom is one of those moms, she's always interested in things, and we have a lot of vacations, and she's very well read, and she has a very good vocabulary. But she'd always say, y'all are my gun bearers. We're going to go over to Ireland, and we ended up going to Germany, we went to Ireland, and we went to London 3 years in a row. But when we were in Ireland, it was very much like that feeling of your mother. That was the language your mom spoke to you, is when you hear people speak with way they speak in Ireland. And I thought everybody was raised this way because my grandmother would say things in her way of talking. It seemed like the Irish always have something to say about things, and she would say things like, "Oh, be careful about marrying a man for his money. You'll earn every penny. You know, beware of hoping somebody will digging someone else's grave unless you fall in it yourself." Stuff like that. I thought everybody was like this, you know. And the same way with my Quapaw and Osage aunts and stuff like that. They had things that they would say that when I was in Ireland. So you hear this, and it's almost like it's like hearing your mom talking to you when you're a baby. It's this warm feeling and this connection that I really had no idea that would be there. And while we were visiting there, we go to the ceremonial residence of the mayor of Dublin, and they have a plaque on the wall there. And it says that they, of course, it's better worded than I'm just going to paraphrase, but they had sent $140. This was back in, I think it was 1847, something like that. They had sent $140 that put their money together to the Choctaw Nation. The spirit of displaced peoples everywhere. We're giving you this, you know, we heard about your story about being basically kicked out of Mississippi and Alabama, and kicked out of Oklahoma. And these Irish people have heard about it all the way over there. There's still that plaque there. There's also this, there's beautiful sculpture. I tried to put it on there, but thank you. I had a lot better ideas for my PowerPoint that came down to a slideshow. So, but there's a picture of there's a sculpture of these feathers that's in Dublin that talks about this relationship with displaced people. It wasn't because we went to the potato famine. No, they were getting kicked out of England, and they knew it. They knew it ahead of time, and acknowledged it. So when I get back, and also during the pandemic, I read this book. It just blew my mind. Actually, I got it on tape or on CDs. It's called Tipperary by this author. His name is Frank Delaney. He's an Irish novelist, a journalist, and a broadcaster. And when I first listened to the first chapter, it really blew my mind. Because one of the things that he says that be careful when you talk about me. And he's talking about Ireland too. He said, be careful when you talk about the history of Ireland. And I'll paraphrase what he said. Because it was written by the conquerors. Okay? They're the ones who have said, and I thought, it just blew my mind because I thought of how much this has been in our country. So much of our history has been written by the conquerors. And they still haven't figured this out. And they still haven't figured out what drives us. Or, better yet, how we survive all these things. So it really got me thinking about how we carry on our history and how we have to adapt it. In the absence of knowing one's own history, sometimes it's almost a temptation to believe what people are saying about your history. So I'll get to this, but again, I started my language classes, and at the time, this was probably close to 30 years ago when we were meeting with Ed Red Eagle Sr. at the Osage Museum. Carl Ponca was hosting it, and he was doing some of the artwork on the paper and stuff like that. And one of the things that okay, so we have Carl Ponca. One of the things when I was up there was they were talking about the Quapaw tribe. One of our people who was there, not only was my dad in the class with me, which was a lot of fun, Johnny McCauley was in our class too, who was from the Quapaw tribe. And he and my dad were about the same age. And I think both had apparently been in the Army about the same time in the Korean War. But one thing I really liked about them is they spoke Osage with an Oklahoma twang. Okay, And it'd be like, Cobra, you know, just very sweet. I just loved it. But we had a lot of good times in those classes and a lot of just practical information about our tribe from at Red Eagle Senior. And one of the important things I learned about going to class and being around my folks is the value of being present during orations. So when you're under the arbor, it's not just for viewing the dance and taking it all in. It's more than that. But Mr. Red Eagle will talk about the spirit that lives under there, that wanache. And it's more than just, it's like it's both a physical and a spiritual thing. But when he was talking about those orations, the way the language moves and the way they're acknowledging different people tells a lot about how we're learning. So when he was saying, he invited us as our class to come up, they were having, the drum was passed the year before, and he was the head committeeman, he was going to be talking and paying for the drum. And we got to, we were up there at Pahaska, and to be able to hear those orations is very powerful because it's not only, it's how the language moves among us and who it was referring to. So it's like when you're listening to those orations, we're actually under the arbor with all of our folks, and they look upon us and they're pleased with what we're doing. It's almost like they're approving of what we're doing. And also, when he's saying about you can raise your family under that arbor, it's more than just attending the dances. We have so many roles and stuff.
And 10 minutes.
What people do and how they do it, but so much of it is about hospitality, about taking care of mourners, about celebrating your family, about putting your child into the dance. It takes a whole family to do that. And the other thing is the importance of being present during orations for like funeral dinners, memorial dinners. There's a difference between, on memorial dinners, there's an extra added thing. It's not we're just remembering, we're actually eating with them at that time. And then when we have blessed food, it's not just food, it's that blessing is actually like an ingredient, just like you would have flour or salt or sugar. It's in there, and it can be, and when you consume it, not only do you get that, but you learn to take it to different people that we're thinking about that maybe couldn't be there. And we bring that blessed food to them. It's different. And even when we have those paper sacks and stuff at the dinner, that's your Olashtag. You're going to bring that food with you to the next place. And it's not just the deceased that has their Olashtag. We're also bringing our food as we go on in the world. And in the old days, when people would travel to come, from out of town to go to the dances or to come to a funeral or something like that, then that would help feed them on the way home. Or when they get home, then they have something to share with people who couldn't make it. So when you listen to those orations, it's more than just being in the classroom and learning the vocabulary. It's about how that language is structured, that you can't really, I don't know how, with writing it, how you translate that, okay? We can look at the sentence structure. We have the basic structure, the subject, object, verb, kind of structure with the Osage language part. But how to get deeper into that is how that language, who we're referring to, who we're developing, that kind of thing. So, and during the pandemic, that was one of the really, really hard things. Not only did everybody lose somebody, but we were able to gather to mourn with each other, to keep someone company when they're wanting to hear that. I was a cook at one time with the Pawnee Indian veterans, and they have different ways about their funerals and whatnot too. But there's something that happens with people that cook for funerals. Donna's here, I cooked with Donna before the funerals and whatnot. You know, at first everyone is, you know, your heart's on the ground. And it's so hard to go through those funerals and let someone go and all that. And you just take it all in as a family. But when that food starts to get served and people start to eat it, their color starts to come back. They start to smile. You know, all those blessings that have been coming this way for them start to, you know, you start to see them come back a little bit too. And when you're a cook, sometimes you can't do anything. You know, as humans, we're so fragile that sometimes, you know, our bodies are so fragile, they get broken, they get sick. You know, our families have so many difficulties. And sometimes it seems like you can't do anything. You can't do anything. But when you start sharing, you drop off the food with the family, you start receiving the food, you start eating it, you start keeping it healthy, it turns things around. And it's important to hear those orations at funerals. So during the pandemic, we together, everything was all kind of mixed up. And it was tough. Everybody, every single person in the whole world pretty much was affected. So also during this pandemic, so I ended up, you know, so I'd been retired as a nurse, but I had thought I would build a little house at my farm. I actually still have a 10 acres that was my grandparents' original allotment, part of it. And I just can't describe the feeling of being on that land itself because so many stories I've heard about it and so many things. But so I thought, well, just build a house on my little land there. I'm going to retire, be a little grandma. I'm not only a mom, but I'm a grandma and I'm a great grandma too. And I know I seem terribly young to be a great grandma. I think that's real funny. My daughter started having children when she was really young. And at first I was scared. I was like, what the heck's going to happen? Angie was seeing very young. People, of course, were pretty gentle about kind of the stuff. And I thought, oh my gosh, you know, what am I going to do? And I thought, you know what? You're just going to act like, just like your grandparents did. Everything's going to be fine. And that's exactly what I did. And it was exactly right. I just had to act like my grandparents did to me. And everything's been great. My granddaughter is just wonderful. And she's a mama now too, so that's how come I'm a great grandma. And so during the pandemic, so I thought, well, I'll just start building. Well, nothing worked out, as you can imagine. You know, it's like the building industry was out of control. Everything was going crazy. And so I had gotten a little job that I thought was going to pay my mortgage or whatever on this house. And I kind of liked it. You know, I'd been a nurse for all that time and I worked several other jobs and stuff. But this one was I worked at the casino in Skytube in their surveillance department in the security. I was a surveillance officer. I loved it. I'm telling you, it was so cool. Because when you're a nurse and you work, it's a collaborative thing. When you work in the executive levels, you have meetings all the time. You always have to have this and that. And I was also involved in a lot of workforce things. We had a lot of conferences, a lot of visiting. And when you work in security at the casino, you're not supposed to talk to anybody else because you may be surveilling them. So it was kind of cool. You have your own break room. You don't got to worry about the group potlucks, birthday parties and all that kind of stuff. Or I had this real goofy supervisor up in Montana. So I was like, we're going to huddle. We're going to huddle and talk about, it would be like show and tell. Well, today I have a group call with the nurses at Croatian. But I didn't have to do all that. So I just had to go in and do the cameras. And my supervisors my lead people in my unit were, I worked overnight, were young people. And I really liked working with them. They were so good at those. A lot of what you do when you're in surveillance is you're testing the cameras. And you have to run little tests and look at the security stuff and all that. And they kept making fun of me because for practice, you would practice, using different cameras and seeing where they saw and stuff. one of the things that you do for practice is like track a patron that they do. So you can practice which cameras work where. And they kept teasing me and being like, being like they were calling me the ghost hunter because I'd be like tracking somebody, and then I'd switch to a different camera. And I was like, I don't know where they went. And then another time we had this horrible. I lived at a rental place in Sky 2. I was working there, and we had this. I don't even know what you call it. He was a real sketchy lawn guy. And he was always like showing up, wanting to get money, and then not finishing or disappearing. And we kept saying, well, "Do you think he's missing for real?" Or just, one night when I was really looking at the surveillance, we could be in, so I saw him. He's alive. There he is, the long guy. But anyway, I'll get back to what I'm doing. So there's a value of being present for those dinners and orations and whatnot. And really, all my life, I never considered myself at all fluent. And we had heard from all the different, when we all started our program and started looking at it, there were all these linguists were saying, this many people are fluent, this many, and this 11 or 20, and I really didn't even think about how they came up with that and how they even noticed. But when I started thinking about this, what Mr. Delaney had said about the story being written by the dominant society, I'm like, how in the heck? Okay. First of all, I didn't even think I was any kind of way fluent whatsoever. A couple things happened to me. One of them was when I first got asked to be a teacher. It was Dana's mother, Mary Grace, that called me. I was on the beach with my sister. We take family vacations at Tybee Island, Georgia. And I was sitting on the beach, and I got a phone call from Mary Grace, and she said, Moby wants to know if you want to be a teacher with this. I was like, oh my God. Never thought about that. And the other thing, he had already introduced I'm trying to hurry. He already had introduced the orthography, and with the dyslexia, I mean, I can't even do that whatsoever. And I told Mary Grace, I said, the thing about dyslexia is you can't like study past it or learn about it. It's just there. It's always there. Or as I tease my oldest sister, dyslexia on an old woman is still kind of ugly. You know what I mean? It's just like, what do you mean by, a lot of times I can't read emojis. And my brother had given me a camera that had like pictures of like if it's a person or a landscape. So I have to go, well, which ones are the mountains? I have to go, which ones are the mountains? And so I could turn to the right dial. So I told Mary Grace, I can't do this. There's no way. I'm not going to do that all. And he said, that's not good enough reason not to. So he still wanted to be a teacher. So, and I was talking to my sister Jan, and I was like, what in the world would Grandma ever say? Because when they taught us how to talk in Indian, they were always real specific about how we said it. And then we pronounced things correctly. And they were pretty, they were direct. They weren't mean and shaming, but they were very direct about how to talk. And I remember this time when I was a little kid, when we would be visiting, we always had little cups of coffee. And when my grandma had something really important to say to us, we had little cups of coffee while we were talking. And we were sitting there, and I think I was about 5 or 6 years old, and I was sitting at the table with my Aunt Mary. I had a picture of her and my grandma, and they're trying to teach me how to say cake. They go, what's this? And I said, what's this? And he'd start laughing. Kind of like how you would laugh at a kid who says, escape, something like that. So they were always, like pronouncing it correctly, how you say it. And my sister Jan was like, did you ever know Grandma to ever think that we were anything but really, really, really cool? So I thought about that, and I was like, all right. But actually, a couple of weeks later, I had a dream. And since then, I've had other communication with the other side and things like that. But I went into a house, and there were all my Indian folks. My folks were mixed, Osage and Ponca. So they were mixed. They were in this house, and they were talking to me. And I understood what they were saying. It was more or less like, this is her. This is her. Two together. This is her. It was a house that looked like an old house, it was a wood house, and real plain that they were there and they were talking to me. And I was like, I guess I must know more than I thought. So then we got involved with this Dhegiha, I think it was the first one that I went to. That Tracy was on that committee, Tracy Moore, and Donna, and Mr. Lookout. And the very first part of it was introductions. And I remember when they were planning, it was like, how should we do this? We go, tell people what to say, give them a format of what to say. And we said, just like, let's just have them introduce themselves. So Omaha lady got up, and started talking. Oh my gosh. I can understand every single thing she said. And she was telling us the story of how our tribes all ended up getting split up. And it was very dramatic, and I'm sitting here thinking, it was that way for the whole thing. I've talked to other people since then. It was like, you could hear a pin drop in that ballroom. Because as she's talking, she's telling us about the story of, I had always heard, the Osage being the middle waters, and then you got downstream people, but I never quite heard what caused them to split up. I knew from talking to different immigrants this story about that this manifest destiny, like going west to find your fortune and stuff. That really wasn't true for immigrants or for Indians. That people didn't immigrate unless it was intolerable where they were coming from. People didn't leave Ireland because it was too green. Okay, they left Ireland because it kept happening. So same with Indians. We didn't leave. Like it was a go west and kind of thing. No, we left because we couldn't sustain our lives. This story was, I just can't even tell you how transformational it was, because it was the way that she was describing the water. There was a big old flood, was what it was. And apparently these boats were all lashed together. And she talked about it was straight up life and death. It was a very dramatic story. It was very scary. The water was like boiling and black and scary and stuff. And they had to make the decision to split up. And she's telling this story, she was saying, this is how my folks have always told us about it. And she said, they cut that. Those bindings that got those boats together. She said they went off in every direction. But the way that she used that to cut, you could almost hear the knife slice through the ropes, the bindings between those boats. And then she said, we always wondered what happened to our family. What happened to everybody? What happened in the other places where they ended up? And she said, my folks always told me we get back together. She's telling us this in her language. I can understand everything she's saying. And she said, and I think here we are. We look around the room. Sure enough, here we are. This is the day how people got back together and all talk the same language. It blew me away. First of all, apparently I'm a whole lot more fluent than I thought. And secondly, that's how everybody was. Tracy was like, good grief. Who knew? Who knew that you'd be able to understand all that? That happened one other time too, when I've been at a Native American church meeting. Okay, that's okay. I'll really get going here. The publication of the Quapaw tribe had a story in it one time that was talking about how we ended up here, and it wasn't like what I heard in there. And so I started talking to Tracy. I said, "Can we get a hold of that tape again? If we could, translate that tape and adopt creation or how we got here, And then she said, "But it's missing. It's missing." She remembered that too, and she said it's missing. And that's what I started thinking about this two paths way of doing things. First of all, the first path is that we have to identify and catalog all the spoken word resources that we have. There have been times in different programs where people have ordered materials, they've kept them back, maybe they've lost them. But we really need a time to really get down to business on identifying them, identifying the speaker, who that speaker's lifespan was, what the circumstances were when it was, because those orations are so important as far as the structure of our language and our story of our people. And we have an archival part of the spoken word of our language and have it cataloged, protected, and retrievable. So then we have this other part. We have a pretty robust language program. I know a lot of the language programs are pretty robust. The Osage one is one I'm much familiar with. You've got classrooms, you've got curriculum, you've got group, you got field trips and all this intergenerational learning. And it's all there, but I think it's time for us to revisit our roots a little bit too. And realize that each site has a sort of a different role. Now that the language is both in the public and private schools, they have a little bit different relationship with their population. For one thing, recruitment, you don't have to do much recruitment because they're already in school. So that part's kind of taken care of. The other thing, it has to be inclusive. So there's other people other than just Osages that are going to be in them. So the curriculum has to be usable and measurable. And the teachers have to have credentials. But really, in all of our programs, teachers should have credentials. We should all have a program, a way to orient teachers on their role. Because Dana said it's a very tough job. I was teaching for like 5 years before I finally asked my class, how many people in here have heard spoken Osage? I really thought everybody had. This was my experience. Not one person in there had ever heard spoken Osage before. Then I started thinking, how hard is that to learn a language that you've never heard these before, except in tapes like that. But also too, we also have, once you start getting a handle on pronunciation and talking, there's not a place where you can like watch TV, go to Osage channel, or watch the soap operas or whatever. That's happened me a lot when I was learning how to speak Spanish. Go to the Spanish station, read a Spanish newspaper. We don't really have that. We have to kind of come up with it. I know one of the things that Mongrey used to do before we have our classes at the we have immersion events at the museum. Sometimes it's kind of fun too. Philbrook, and we're all like looking around, and those museum people are like, "What the heck's going on?" We're all talking Osage about the art and stuff, and it's really kind of fun because it does give you something to say. Because once you're sitting there and stuff, talk Osage. Well, it's kind of hard to come up with something to say. So we go to a museum, and one of them I know was really fun. We were at Gilcrease, and Gilcrease has a very long relationship with Indian people, and so we were all walking around in our little group, and we went to this one painting. You guys may remember from Gilcrease. It was a big old painting. It was like a sun-baked rock, and there's all these snakes all over it. I was standing next to Stephanie Rapp, and we're looking. All the women are looking at the snakes, and someone says, "Winter." Yeah, sure, that's a snake, right? But we would talk about different things that we would see. They were having an exhibit that day on the 101 Ranch. And, I had worked around Ponca City and stuff. And the 101 Ranch has a bit of a dubious history. I mean, on one hand, they did have Indian performers, had a rodeo and stuff. On the other hand, they didn't ever pay for their lease payments or anything like that. They mistreated their performers and stuff. So there was a show dress from the 101 Ranch. It was a buckskin, and it looked like it was from Tandy's or something. It was a show dress, like super wide, and so we're looking at it. There's tourists in there. The tourists are on the other side of the mannequin, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Oh my God, look at that dress. It's just beautiful." it was a social, and people were like talking to Osage, like, that's a dress. Yeah, so that's a dress. And one of the guys said, beads big enough to kill a rabbit. We're all laughing around about this dress. And so as we go forward, you know, we always need to really think about that family, that home, you know, our family relationships, and design our immersion to help that along. To help that, that's the ways to do intergenerational work. I need to hurry. Okay, I'll just skip to the thing. Okay, we need to really, as far as the long term too, you know, part of my background too is workforce issues. Okay? We need to all make sure that our, as Mr. Rhodd was saying, his tribe does not support a language program. So what does that mean for the future? I mean, we have to get to a point where these are careers that people can make money at and have benefits. Also credentials and a career letter. So if someone wants to apply for a job in your language program, you know, what are the requirements to get that job? And what kind of training do you have to support that? But as well too, is it something that someone can raise a family on? Will they have benefits? Is there a career ladder? Can people, you know, work their way up to have greater responsibilities and more impact? As much as it's not traditionally in our language itself to set up work for, these are the details that we have to take care of so our programs can continue. The other thing is
Let's see some pictures.
oh, let me get we're working on something. And like I said, you know, the creator loves to point out things that still need to learn. So this is my dad. He's very loved child. This is Lena's great grandma. This is Mom Superno. This is the lady who named us all. As you know, she was our traditional namer for our tribe. The thing about Lena is, like a lot of people, or the thing about Mom Superno, or Grandma Superno, required to call her, is that once, you know, we went through a ceremony in her house with me, and my dad took us all, you know, together, and we're all there together. After that, she always would call you by your Indian name when I'd see her. And you know, that's pretty special. When you have one of 6 kids, it's very rare for somebody to keep it straight through the life. But every time I shook hands, and that's the other thing, my grandma, you know, that's the part of our culture that sometimes is lost. People have to acknowledge their relatives where you go somewhere. So we would go somewhere, and my grandma would have us go acknowledge our relatives. One of the ones was Grandma Superno and all of her sons. And we'd go around and shake their hands. But she would always call us by her name. Lena talked about how it sounded when Grandma Superno said her name. And I can still remember how she talked. And that's something that people a lot of times don't really realize. These are the women who really taught me a lot about our language. They both were Quapaws and Osages. That's Mary Radigal. That's my grandma Bessie. And if you see that something about those Indian women, look how neat and tidy they always look. That's something about them. They always look neat and good. And my grandmas and my grandparents both sides. How do we look around your people? You got to be properly dressed. That's one of the main things. This is my great-grandfather. My great-grandmother, who I'm just finding out recently, she's from Baxter Springs. She's buried out by our farm in Sperry. But that's her name was Rosella Showtime. And that's my great-grandfather. His name is Joseph Lane. And that's my grandma's brothers. And I tell you more stories about them. That is my Aunt Charlie. My Aunt Charlie is my dad's first cousin. What happened to Aunt Charlie was part of our family history. Aunt Charlie's parents were shot to death in front of her in 1927 down in Tulsa. they said it was a crazy man that just shot him to death in front of the kids. Okay, they scooped up the kids and went off in the ambulance with them together. Their parents were killed. That man apparently was the first time they ever used the insanity plea in Oklahoma, and all the people went into that. She was raised at first. I don't know if y'all remember that book, The Killers of the Flower Moon. They wouldn't let Osage take care of their own kids, okay, their own family. So my Aunt Charlie was sent to her dad's former wife's family to be taken care of for about 4 or 5 years before the family could get it back. And then she was raised by my dad. She's still alive. We talk all the time. And that's another thing that I wanted to say is we need to take those opportunities for the in-person learning and visiting as much as we can. We can do a lot, text and all this kind of stuff, but it's that visiting that's the very core of our people speaking to each other, being present, being around them. So me and Aunt Charlie talk all the time. She's in Michigan now, and she's a wonderful link to my past, but she's wonderful. And she'd get mad if I said she's the oldest Quapaw. I think she's 96. I'm sorry. Okay, and I just wanted to show you this real quick. One of my teachers was Harry Redigo Jr. He was a head committee man at Hominy, and we had classes with them. Donna was in there and at Whitehair and stuff. Well, he named my kids. He was the namer for our people, and so I had to go to him and visit with him. But he wrote it all out, and he had to figure out, because a lot of times people don't realize that clans sometimes were disrupted. So if you married someone who was an Osage, then they have to fix that to like, what clan are you if it didn't come down to your dad? So we had to visit with him first, and those are the notes that he gave me. And you can see the way we did our language was you write it as you hear it. So that's the note that I got from Harry Redigo when he named our kids. And this, you guys probably see this picture a lot around in the different pictures. That's my grandma and my Aunt Mary. And if you notice that dress too, that's something about Quapaws that you don't hear very much about. Their clothing is different than the Osages, our clothing for our dances and stuff. But they were very proud. A lot of these women, they would say they can make anything with a needle and thread. They can make anything. They made, sewed for their children. That's how it started out. And then you see those clothes and how important that apron is too. That apron says a lot about who we are as women. And that's my grandma. I could go visit her. They always visit when we go visit with my grandma. But also, too, she didn't suffer fools like you kids, so she was always pretty serious about stuff. I thought I had some more in here. But I guess get this down. Okay. We can't give up. That's how our folks were. That's how they dealt with all the losses and everything. We just kept going. So I just want to thank you for paying attention to me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you guys. It's been like old home week here, seeing everybody. And I was going to say that. But thank you all for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Kayte. That was great. The children's room is closed, so no volunteers. They'll be done here in a minute. So that's 20 minutes ago. So anyway, if you could pick up your children. I know there's some parents that aren't in here, but their children are in there, and there's some full diapers in there too. So if you know anybody, you might let them know. So we'll go ahead. I'll just say a quick prayer. Dinner's ready. Itatsi wakanda wakanda kijiki. They wa wichi O-gah-pah. They onkali mata tak ewa na kipi ongola pinaha. If we they ha ta the hoa na kika gombe. Sea Shita, Vidali Shita, Dhegiha, Se, Onkipio, O-Guah-Pah, De on Ombre, Se, Eonaki, O-Guah-Pah, Itwideha, Owanaki, Kapikombo. Walaji, Ebeha, Enkip Shishkidaha, Vidali Alag Shikombra, Gashena, Ekip Shikombra. And I'd also wanted to introduce, Wena Supernal, chairman for the Quapaw here with us too. All right, and our next speaker after dinner, I think she's going to get here at 2 o'clock, so our meeting's going to be bumped up. And she had a flat in Bartlesville. One hombre.
Guess what it is? Ham or turkey?
Oh, I'm gonna check and see what it is. Amber alert, 10 months old. I know. Get an Amber alert.
Okay.
Sit right here so you can see her person.
They're all having juice.
Zani Wally would be going breath. Next speaker is Julie May, the Osage Peach.
Hey, Pache. Thank you, Bill. Oh, God. Thank you for being understanding. We just went through so much to get here today, and between the Indian time, our res car, and ladies' ribbon skirt, it was a swear we could be an episode out of Red Dogs. Right? Yes. Okay, so some of you know me, and for those of you that don't, my name is Julie May. I'm just your favorite neighborhood meat pie lady. No, I don't have any with me today. That's usually the first question when I say who likes meat pies in here? Yeah. Good amount of people. Yeah. Yeah. I seen on Facebook the other day someone was talking about traditional meat pies. They was griping about them being, the price going up. They was talking about them being $4. And got me thinking about the price of everything, and $6 is pretty reasonable. And I seen someone saying, well, traditionally they were $4. I was like, what if we pulled that on McDonald's? What if we went to McDonald's and was like, traditionally there was dollar menu items, the dollar items on the dollar menu. Traditionally I could feed my whole family for $20. They probably tell me, yeah, man, it's still $56.49. Because my goodness. But yes, I'm from Pahuska. That was a drive. And I'm second to the youngest of 6 siblings. And that's always fun to come from a big Indian family. Me and my oldest brother, we're probably the wildest ones. We'll get to that in a minute. But so another thing about me, I am single. So if anyone knows any single uncles, just send them over. Or keep the red flags to a minimum. And the exes, crazy exes, no crazy exes. But also, I'm Osage Peach, if that makes a difference. Sometimes it does. I went on a date with a fancy dancer, and I told him I was Osage. And he goes, oh, okay. He was feeling that. And then I said, and I'm Pawnee. And then he kind of goes, oh. I'm the one that should have been scared. You gotta watch them fancy dancers. I'm telling the truth. And it was Ponca. So, yes. So, let's see. So, most of everybody in here is tribal employees. So, it's a conference. Do I have any casino people in here? Anyone work at the casino? Well, for every job I've had, from tribal offices to the casinos, they all kind of have something in common. There's always a conversation, we're married, we met at work, or we're engaged, we met at work, or look, hear them too, they're snapping now, they met at work. And my only question is, how do you snap someone at work? How does that work? I'm just, I've always kind of wondered to myself, because that's probably got to be a little awkward, and I kind of think to myself, that's when I did this bit, I got a bunch of people in my inbox and in person telling me how they literally snagged at work. That was interesting. A lot of closets. That's rugged. I was like, that can't be me. Not no closet. No. I was more so talking about the conversation that would lead to someone snagging at work. Because that's got to be kind of awkward. Because where's this going down at? Are we talking breaks? Are we talking after work? I don't know. Maybe it's because I've never worked with anybody attractive. I don't know. I used to work at the casino. And when I go on at the casino, my second oldest brother called me to congratulate me. And he goes, you better watch out. Because people snag over there. The whole casino, they're known for that at Sand Springs. I was like, ooh, okay. Well, my brothers always tell me to behave wherever I go. If I'm going to a powwow, he's always telling me to behave. But when I got there wasn't anybody attractive there. And not even the security officers. I mean, they were old men, or they was under 5'10". Thankfully, nothing really popped up at Sand Springs because we would all be in trouble. But sometimes, I get, surprised working at the casino. It's very interesting working there. I think the most interesting thing that happened was not it wasn't the guy that had a heart attack. It was the guy that had a heart attack, and he kept playing as they were working on him. He was like this. Kept going. And that didn't, was kind of surprised me, but one thing that surprised me one time, I worked at the Players Club where you make the cars, And one day my supervisor comes in and goes, "Oh, I need you to make a card for somebody. They're gonna come in, they're VIP." And I was like, "Okay." So I pull them up and I look at their record. This person spent about $20,000 on an average afternoon. And I was like, $20,000, like 15, 10. I can't see how someone just goes in on their lunch break and spends that much. So I asked my coworker, I'm like, "Who is this person?" And they're like, "Oh, they're married to this man. They just moved here from Texas. He's in oil." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So this guy walks in. He's a tall cowboy, bearded, looking all Yellowstone. Walks back to the VIP room. Well, here comes his woman. That's the card I was making. And I was like, "Man, who's this?" I just see the top of her little head. And I was like, "She's probably some second runner-up in the Miss Texas pageant, rodeo queen." So I make her a little card. And up walks this beautiful Native woman. She had the long black hair, the most turquoise jewelry I've seen on anyone. And I made her card for her. She goes, "Is my card ready?" And I was like, made her card and I was like, "Hey, well, go ahead, sis." I was like, "Get her laying back, one white man at a time." So, but that was interesting. Yes. So, one thing I always ask any audience, do I have any single people in here? Well, all married or with someone? Back there? All right. Nice. I just like to know if I'm around single people, that's it. Because I'm out here dating, and when you're dating in your 30s, it kind of gets interesting. Okay? It gets interesting because you're kind of catching the second wave of single people. Like divorces, things didn't work out with the baby's mom, like it gets interesting. People my age, they're kind of thirsty. I mean, I'll be talking to them. Thirsty is desperate. Really love them. But yeah, it gets kind of interesting because I'll be trying to ask them, basic questions and like where you were, that kind of thing, get to know them. And then they just get real sexual right off the bat, and I cannot. And then you got older men, because you're in your 30s, you get people that are older. I've not dated a grandpa yet. I had somebody slide in the inbox and ask me to be a sugar baby one time. Now, can you really be a sugar baby if you're pushing 40? I don't know the rules. I don't know. Sugar woman. It doesn't have the same ring to it, though. It don't work. But sometimes you get the young ones in there. The young ones. One time I had this young man slide in the inbox, and he, I was trying to let him down easy, and then he goes, No, I could be your young stallion. Yeah, he really said he could be my young stallion. And I was like, calm down. I literally dated his uncle. Like, we sat there and watched this little boy play powwow in the living room with babysitter. I was 18, he was 3 years old. And now here he was. He wants to be my young stallion. But, every now and then, as I was growing up, I kind of like the bad boys. I'm better now. But every now and then, it kind of seeps in. One time I was talking to this tall straight man, and we just get to know each other. And he goes, "Oh, I think you're sexy." And I was like, "Okay." And then he goes, "I've liked you for a long time." "Oh, for real?" I mean, I'm going to get bored at this point, and I'm starting to get off the phone. And he goes, blah, blah, blah. And then I did 2 years in jail or prison. I was like, "So you really think I'm sexy? You like me for a long time? What?" Man, that's rude. Sometimes it does, though. But yeah, I do date the native guys. That's all I date. But I have a lot of girlfriends, and they talk about, you need to date a white man. I ain't never dated no white man. But I'm kind of thinking to myself, one time when I was at work, this one of the girls was dating a white man. And that man sent her flowers like every 2 weeks. Flowers, beautiful arrangements every 2 weeks. It got me kind of thinking, they brought him in one day and I was looking at him like, it's for her again. I'd have to get me a white man, if only for the flowers. But no, I ain't never gone that far. But let's see. So we all know that natives love business, right? We all love business. I swear, natives, we start a business quicker than Dollar Generals go up in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's all kinds of business out here. Fashion lines, makeup lines. We're making moves in the industry, the entertainment industry, killers, res dogs. Man, the only thing I haven't seen yet, you want to stay with me for a minute. Native-inspired condoms. I have not seen it yet. I might have to do it myself. This is the pitch, okay? The wrapper could be a Pendleton wrapper. Pendleton print. Or a tribal print. And they could be flavored, Ponca peach flavored. Okay. Sweetgrass scented for the ladies. Cedar scented for all you sacred fellas. That's probably right. But that got me thinking. I have a lot of ideas. One thing that kind of came into my mind when I was thinking about that was, I spent some time on dating apps. I don't know if y'all know what those are really. I was opposed to it, but a lot of my friends tried them. And so I went ahead and got on there just to check it out. A lot of dinner invites for a white man I never went on. And the first tall traditional dancer I met on there, that was it for me. I got off. But one thing I thought was kind of interesting was that none of these dating apps had a review section. Like, how convenient would that be if there was some kind of place you could go to review your stats? I mean, you could just check, somebody's checking off, all the things on your checklist when you're dating. You could just go to this app where you can just pull up everywhere they've been, all their snag reviews. I kind of feel like they could use the same grading system as those tablets at Olive Garden. It'd be kind of interesting. It'd be like Julie Made, 5 stars for friendliness, 5 stars for attentiveness. We'll plan a return visit. We'll suggest 2 friends again. And then you can have additional comments. And, someone's 1 star might be somebody's 5 star on that. For instance, if you go on a date with somebody and they're all looking good, hold on, let me check them snag reviews. Pull them up. They can get, see 1 star on them. Click on it. And then imagine it would say, went on a date with this man and he got in a bar fight and went to jail. I might still go ahead with it. Sounds interesting to me. But speaking of social media, so y'all know, has y'all been in like a Facebook fight ever? We all been on there. We've all seen it. The group pages, all that. Well, one time, my mom, she's a really sweet lady. She's really sweet. She's so cute. Kindest woman you'll ever meet. She got on there one time and she goes, well, I'm going to get on this status here. I'm going to comment. I was like, why? And she goes, well, I want to speak my mind. They're fighting on here and I want to get in there. I'm like, don't get in there. Just read the comments and keep scrolling. Don't even get on it. Well, I'm going to comment. I'm like, fine, but you should know if you comment, I'm gonna have to comment. So I start talking crazy to you. And then pretty soon my sisters are on there, then my brothers are on there. Then pretty soon my oldest brother is confronting somebody at the next tribal gathering. Just stay on there. But, that's kind of the difference between, I think there's like levels of ruggedness. You know what I mean? There's people that are rugged, and then there's people that can get rugged. Okay? So that's the only time I would get rugged. And one of the differences between like older people that are rugged and younger ones, see, new rugged is going to go to Facebook with their beef, write a big old status, go tweet about it. Maybe make a TikTok. Old rugged will come find you. So, but you guys are just a good crowd. I just want to say that. Yeah. You guys are beautiful. But let's talk about something a little interesting right now. White people. We're going to go ahead and switch it up. So, I'm white. I know. I don't look like it. It's like a little bit. Just a little bit. And I kind of think that there's two strong reactions when a native tells a bunch of white people that they're white than when a white person tells a gang of natives that they're native. See, when I told like a gang of white people, because I do comedy in Tulsa, when I told like a bunch of white people that I'm white, they're like, no, that is awesome. Get in here. Get her a drink. I bought drinks off of it. I'm like, hi, And white people telling a gang of natives that they're white, we're like, prove it. Let's see your card. Yes, we want to see that card. The whole different thing. But yes, I am part white. Yeah, that had to be kind of awkward back then because, I come from a long line of chiefs back then. French moving into the territory. My grandma had to be like, you know what, guys? I know it's getting a little tense around here. Here's my new man. There he is. I think it was the beard. Yeah. Why men didn't work in the beards? I swear. But she put a poke on us. Yeah. So anyway, continuing with the white people. One thing, I can't wear beaded earrings without at least getting asked if I made them by one nice white lady. Every time I wear beaded earrings, they're always like, those are gorgeous. Did you make those? No, I didn't. Because I'm a native that can't bead. I hate it. I wish I could. I can do ribbon work with this no tomorrow. But I feel like the ribbon workers don't get the same hype as bead workers. They should. I made a whole regalia. I made a whole skirt, drop, and a shawl. All ribbon work. It's beautiful. Got like 200 likes on it. Someone beads a lanyard and goes viral. It ain't the same. I wish it was, but yeah, I kind of feel like I'm letting the people down, not being able to bead. I kind of feel like a white mom that can't make casseroles, or a white person without good creative. I know not all white moms make casseroles, and they all don't have good credit, but it just makes a little less sense when they don't, And so one time, I was rocking these really pretty hand-painted earrings with tribal flowers on them. And no, I didn't make those either because I can't paint. So I was wearing these, and the same thing, white lady walks up to me and is like, did you make those? I was like, no, I didn't make this. And I was getting ready to tell her where I got them, and she goes, did your family member make them? I was like, why do I gotta have like an attachment to my handmade jewelry. I was like, this time, I'm gonna turn the tables. I said, I like your earrings too. And she goes, oh, thank you. And I said, did you make them? She goes, what? No, these are Claire's. I said, your Aunt Claire? She goes, no, sweetie. And then she knew what I was doing, and we had a good laugh about it. And yes, my aunt did make those earrings. But and then white people, they always got some questions for us. Lots of questions. Sometimes they got a story for us though. And natives, we like a good story. We like to tell a good story. So I was doing comedy one time, and the comedy crowd in Tulsa is so nice and supportive and awesome. I just love it there. They're just awesome. And one time I came to this open mic with my two friends. They're Osage too. And one of the other comics, she's an older Italian lady, so sweet, so sweet. She comes up to me. She goes, hey, Julie, it's nice to see you. I've been out for a while because of heart problems. I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. How you doing? And she was like, well, I'm good now. But I got to tell you, if I go down tonight because of a heart attack, I want you and you girls to get around me. And I want y'all to start dancing. This. Like this. And she was really going for it. She's about to start scrub dancing. But she was like, and we was all watching her do this, and I was like, and she goes, and I want you guys to start chanting too. It's like this. You know how you guys do. And we were like, I said, I can tell you right now with certainty that if you went down because of a heart attack, I'm calling 911 before I do any of that. And she goes, no, but it's my dream. It's my dream. I was like, so her dream was to be racist and get away with it. Basically. So anyway, she switches up gears. She goes, Julie, I gotta tell you something. Oh Lord. What is it? She goes, I had a dream. I said, you did? Okay. She goes, I want to tell you about it. I said, okay. She goes, I was walking through a forest and I came up on this waterfall. And she goes, and Julie, standing underneath it was a really tall, built Native man. And he was naked. And he was well endowed. He was like, what? And she goes, it was a good dream. And I was like, I said, you know what? I think you might have had yourself a vision. I said, and I believe in that vision. I've had that vision too. And in reality. But only in the reality, the waterfall was a shower head in Indian housing. And the guy came with like 3 red flags. And a couple crazy exes. But anyway, so given all that, we went ahead and gave her a name. Yeah. I mean, the woman had herself a vision. What are you going to do? She needed a name. So she'll now be known amongst our people as Shanti Kiwatsi. And that is Dances with Dicks. I'm Julie May. Thank you for your time.